I mean, speaking of Spider-Man 4, I feel like this is like the best transition we're possibly going to get. So I wanted to write notes today, just like all the character names, because there's a lot of characters in the show. There's a lot of things I wanted to write down. But we did have the first 2-episode premiere of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, Darth isn't here right now, but this has been a limelight of this show for a long time, because in our most anticipated show list of 2020, like going into 2024, I had this show on. This is one of the things I had on my list, because we thought it was supposed to come out last year along with all those other shows. And it's interesting, because I'm very excited to have whenever he comes back, because we were in disagreement in our excitement. He was not excited for it. I was excited for it because at the time I liked the animation style. I liked the idea of getting a new Spider-Man show that wasn't directly tied to the MCU. It had been a while since we had another animated Spider-Man show. I haven't seen all of them, but I love when each generation can have their own Spider-Man series. I think that's really, really cool. I think Ultimate was kind of my generation technically, right? But obviously you have Spectacular Spider-Man and Spider-Man the Animated Series, and I haven't heard good things about the latest one they did in the 2017 show or whatever.
That one was a weird one,
right?
But at least this animation style actually oddly reminds me of that one the most.
Sure. Let me read some. Okay, Jeffrey said praying for Blade. I think Blade's after Secret Wars. I think it has to be at this point, which makes sense. If that's your kind of reboot kind of point, don't introduce new characters right now until after the reset, because you can kind of
which Blade though.
Oh, I think it has to be Mahershala, right? That's the new one. Mahershala Ali. Yeah, I think it has to be him. I don't want Wesley Snipes back. I don't I love him.
Do you think
He's
he shows up in Secret Wars? Maybe
he does. He 100% does. But I don't it's the same thing.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
Yeah, but it's I also don't want Hugh Jackman to be the permanent Wolverine going forward. I want it to be a new person. It just to me that screams lazy. If Robert Downey came back as Tony permanently, I'd be no, that sinks. Get someone else to play that character. I wouldn't want that. Stringer said, I love the show, which sucks even more that the actor said something stupid right before it dropped. That was just... Okay, let's talk about that first. I'm actually really glad you brought that up.
I heard you talking about this on Eric's streams and everything like that. So I'm in an interesting spot with this. I think it was nothing more than a publicity stunt. I think that whether it garnered good or bad buzz around the show, he said a buzzword that a sect of the fandom responds to, and whether he even knew what he was saying, I think that it was very formulaic, and then they were trying to backtrack it because it got maybe more negative response than it should have. However, I think overall it did nothing but help the show because you got more eyes and ears on it.
I could not agree more. That interview, that article got more attention to the show than any trailer has, in the last couple weeks of it coming out. I've talked more about the show via that quote than I have about the trailer, which sucks, which speaks volumes to the current trajectory of how media, how we attract attention via media is negativity and hatred, and how could they have done this thing? I think the more I think about it, I actually do think it there was a thing that says, oh, he just misspoke, and I think that's a little bit of BS because it's well, how can you misspeak on something like that? But also, I not to defend the dude because I don't know the dude, but I do wonder if it was someone who did not know what he was talking about. Just
right, he didn't necessarily understand the context of what he was saying or maybe why he was saying it.
Yeah, I think he's probably someone that is offline, doesn't know the current cultural, what that word means.
Yeah, so kind of if your parents try to use slang, is what's up, cool kids? He's not using it in the right way, but he said it just to he's oh, I know this word.
Because every other place I hear him talk, it sounds like he's talking about the opposite. Like he was on the Escape Pod podcast, which I don't really watch. I sometimes find them a little cringe, but I was watching a clip from him because the days before they had him on their podcast talking about Spider-Man. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But like they were talking about like, hey, do you believe that like anyone can wear the mask, that like anyone can be Spider-Man? He's like, yeah, I 100% agree. Like I think that's so true. And I was like, huh, interesting. So you weren't afraid of it being a little woke, right? Like and this show, and we'll talk about it, and this is a positive, very woke. It is actually probably one of the the wokest projects, like out of all the projects that these people are like, oh my gosh, it's woke. This is one I was like, sure, kind of is, yeah. Which I like. I think that's a good thing. I approve of that. But it is. Like it simply is, and I think that's cool.
I just think it's such a weird argument whenever people bring up like superhero projects and things like that getting somewhat current with the times and, you know, I guess for a lack of a better term, somewhat political and things like that. But that's what they've always been. Like it's always meant to show like this, you know, a representation of the real world, but with superheroes.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like going back to like, you know, Green Arrow, right? He's a character that does that all the time in the comics. Yet people got a little upset when there was like a, you know, somewhat maybe agenda driven episode or something like that. So it's just like it comes with the territory.
Kaz, you weren't here inside the spring when we were talking about X-Men 97. Every week on here, I had to get on my soapbox and just scream how goddamn stupid it was. It was like, my X-Men's gone woke. How could they do this? You don't know.
That's the whole point of the X-Men. That's the whole point. They are an allegory for, you know, inequality in the world. That's the whole point.
If you think X-Men, you simply have never watched any piece of X-Men media ever in your life. That original show had like this wheelchair mutant where his power was a wheelchair. Like it's I can't with those people sometimes. And like that's I think like the stupidest example of that thing. But no, I mean, as far as the show itself, like obviously it's been a long time coming. This was announced back in like 2022, along with Marvel Zombies, and I think a new season of What If, and a couple of other things that like we were going to be getting, like X-Men 97 as well was kind of among that group. Now it was originally supposed to be set in the MCU timeline. It was supposed to be a prequel to the MCU Peter Parker, which at the time I thought was cool. It was like, okay, we're finally going to see that origin. But now that we've got it, I am glad it's not. This allows them much more needed freedom. Because let's be real, it could have been like a one-season thing, but I think besides that, where would you have gone? You're so limited by the characters you use and its villains. Like, okay, can't use Norman, can't use Doc Ock or Shocker or, you know, any of these characters that they would ever want to featurely adapt. So,
but I do think this is actually, I told you before we got on here, I have a whole list of like small little nitpicks. I'll check this one off the box because I do find it very obvious that it originally was set in the MCU. Like there are remnants of that. The character design of Aunt May. The way that Peter kind of acts and talks actually sounds very much so like things that Tom Holland would say. You're like, oh, it's Doctor Strange. Like, and I heard him say Mr. Stark and all these kind of things. And I was like, and there was the little Iron Man little thing dangling from the car window and stuff like that. Not that it's inherently a bad thing, but you can definitely see that there are remnants of what the show originally was.
And we can dive more into this and like what it means. It feels like a what if to me. It feels like, and I think this is the point. Like I think they've talked about. I think this is the point. I think this was an MCU like almost identical to the MCU timeline, and then it split off. Like you can tell.
It
I think
deviated like
very
crazy.
Honestly, it could have been like that Doctor Strange moment that we saw, where it's like it was this until Doctor Strange boosted into their world and changed the trajectory of that timeline.
Right.
Which I think is kind of cool, but I also need to see more of it first. Like I need, and I think that's going to be a theme with our discussion today, is there's a lot of things I'm like, interesting. Okay, I need to see what it goes first. Because at the moment, I don't have an opinion on it. I could see it being really, really cool, or maybe some of your concerns are correct, where it's like, that's the choice. Okay, we'll have to see kind of where it goes. And like I'm very excited for our discussion through this, because we did a Spider-Man stream on your channel when Across the Spider-Verse came out, and like we ranked all the like Spider-Man movies, and our lists were completely different. Like we
had kind of were
a fundamental different take on Spider-Man, just like at our core, which is completely fine. And I'm very excited to see kind of where our discussions lead, having different takes on the character. Because who's your favorite Spider-Man? Just like yours is Tobey, right?
It's Tobey for sure. It's Tobey Maguire for sure, as far as like live action media and stuff goes. But we were talking about this beforehand. I still think the best interpretation of Spider-Man across all media is the PlayStation Spider-Man. I think that is kind of the perfect evolution of Spider-Man, and where I would expect him to be once he is set in his career, basically.
Yeah, and like that's interesting, because like, your favorite's Tobey, my favorite's Andrew, just in terms of like an actor playing the character. But I think we both agree PS4 is like the peak of Spider-Man, and I would also argue maybe our second place may be Spectacular Spider-Man. I feel like we might.
I would either say Spectacular or 90s Spider-Man.
90s Spider-Man, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, and again, I think stepping into the show is very interesting, because going in, I was telling people on streams I was on, this is going to piss people off. This is a different take on the character.
Yeah.
And if we've learned anything, people don't like different takes on their characters. The change is hard for people. So I was very curious to see what they were going to change, what they weren't. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you said that was one of your big critiques of the episode, is you didn't like some of the things that they were changing about the show. So what are the changes that you weren't a huge fan of?
So I yo-yoed back and forth so much, really, even in the first 10 or 15 minutes, right? I got so excited when we got an Uncle Ben reference. However, I almost immediately revoked that excitement when I realized Uncle Ben died before Peter got his powers.
Yeah.
Which opens up a whole can, instead of a can of worms, a whole can of spiders. Right? The whole thing is he should have his powers, and he should have made that choice to not, not help when he could have. With great power comes great responsibility. Peter is responsible for Uncle Ben's death in pretty much every incarnation that Uncle Ben exists. However, what this show is implying is that he had no control over Uncle Ben's death. Is he just died?
He's dead, yeah.
So again, happy that they mentioned Uncle Ben, not happy that they took that big pivotal character trait and moment away from Peter.
I'm curious, because I agree right now unless they do something to be like, oh, okay. Like I'm waiting for a potential moment that's like, this is the reason we changed this. This is the reason they altered this part of his origin. Because I also agree, like when that scene happened, I was like, oh, he doesn't have his powers yet. He's dead. That is such a pivotal point in Peter's character. That is such a massive part of who he is. What are they going to fill that gap with? What are they going to fill that with? And I'm curious to see the dynamic between him and Norman, because I think not to jump way ahead here, but I'm curious to see, because like I've heard a lot of people like, oh my gosh, it's just the Iron Man thing all over again. He's just, it's this mentor. I think the difference is that Norman isn't going to be a good thing for Peter. I don't think, right?
The difference is Iron Man wasn't evil.
Like I think like, oh my gosh, he has like a rich mentor thing, and I think that arc is going to work a lot better here, because
I prefer it. I prefer it here,
because I actually really love his homecoming arc of oh no, like the suit doesn't make the man. I have to let go of these riches and all these new things to go back to what made me Spider-Man. That arc is fantastic. I think it's incredible. But I don't like in Infinity War when he's like, well, I'm
time to go to space now.
Yeah, it's just I'm this guy again, and I get him and stuff like that. But I don't like him rejecting the technology just to simply go back to the technology instantly. And I think, again, not to jump way too far ahead into this thing, I think it's going to work better with Norman, because it's clearly not going to work out. Like, teaming up with Norman is not going to work in either of their favors, I don't think. It's going to show that lesson for Peter. But But you are right. Like I'm curious. Like so far, it does kind of feel like he has his morals just just by naturality. Like it's just it's always been there.
Right. He's just a good guy. But
Yeah.
part of Spider-Man was like, think back to the Tobey Maguire movies. Think back to Andrew Garfield. He was kind of a jerk when he got his powers.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I'm going to use my powers to get some money. And what was he trying to do? Buy a car or something like that? And then, hey, stop that guy. I missed the part where that was my problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, that's not how Spider-Man acts, and that's not how he should act. Uncle Ben dies. He realizes, oh, shoot, I messed up. I do have this great power, and with that great power comes that responsibility. So now I actually have to, pick things up and become the hero that I can be and help people so that what happened to my uncle doesn't happen to anybody else. But
I feel like that's... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go. No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I kind of feel like that's why I don't like Tobey Spider-Man, because I kind of feel like he's always a little bit of an asshole. Like he's always like I feel like, yes, you're right, that does teach him, but he always has that like smugness of like, yeah, I'm Peter Parker. I
feel like Andrew Garfield kind of had that too. Like Andrew Garfield had the like, I'm too cool for school mentality.
I don't know. I always thought he was at least like, I don't know, a nice guy, even if he cooler than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Like he was always very kind of mellowed out and stuff like that. But no, I mean, how do you feel about this cast of characters? Because that was a thing I was very curious about. This, like, they had said from like day one, they didn't want this to feel like the same cast of characters in every single Spider-Man adaptation, which I personally really like. I really appreciate it. I think when you have like all of these different takes on the character, it's nice to be like, okay, how can we change this up? How can we, do all this? How do you feel with this kind of new cast of people kind of coming in? And I'm gonna try and pull up.
It feels actually a lot like Spectacular Spider-Man in a way. Yeah. Like I love the school dynamic. I really like how it's not necessarily the classic school dynamic where it's like, oh, Peter's the nerd, he's getting picked on, that sort of thing. Like people actually kind of like him. They know, oh, hey, he's a really smart kid. Like let's be his friend, like that kind of thing. And I think that that's more realistic too to nowadays. Like I feel like, is he at like he was originally going to like a super smart school, basically, right? For a lack of a better term. Gets destroyed. That's really, I guess that'll bring it to my other nitpick, is the whole Doctor Strange of it all.
Okay.
The fact that they Spider-Versed his origin, that the spider that bit Peter comes from another dimension because
that's interesting.
A Doctor Strange was chasing some symbiote creature through a portal. Spider winds up on Peter and bites him. Again, spider from another dimension, not, going to Oscorp and, the spider jumps on him or anything like that. Like, I think that is, again, another odd choice, a choice that I don't love. And the fact that something that you brought up was the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man aspect of things. He already almost doesn't necessarily have a chance to just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of his neighborhood. He is already kind of in this multiversal cosmic storyline just because that's where his powers come from. Same as Miles in Spider-Verse. Like he never got that opportunity at first and he was thrown into a larger story. Like I think we're backtracking from that, but I can tell that that's where they're leading us. And I think that this is definitely going to be a multi-season story and everything like that.
Sure.
But that symbiote is going to come back. Like we're,
right.
I think we're leading to that eventually by the end of the season, which is, again, an interesting choice to do right off the bat. I would feel like that would almost be a better cliffhanger for the end of the first season or the second season rather than that's why he got his powers.
I honestly don't think we're diving into the multiverse stuff this season. I know we're getting Strange again this season, so we're definitely, I think, going to come back in like context with him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't closure on it.
I don't think we're diving to, okay, where did that spider go? Where did it come from? Because that, again, that is a very Spider-Verse-esque thing where it's like, okay, actually kind of the exact same thing as Miles, where it's like, oh,
it is.
Like my like my spider thing was supposed to go to him, but it went to him. But what's also interesting about that is it didn't die, right? It bite him and he hit him and it died, right? It's he's bit him and now he's going somewhere else. So like,
Yeah.
what else is out there in terms of like, oh, who is it going to bite next, right?
Right. Which brings it to the other portion that this feels like a combination of every other Spider-Man
It does.
project that has come before. It is
Yeah.
part Spider-Verse, part MCU, part Spectacular Spider-Man, part Ultimate
Comics.
Spider-Man,
Yeah.
part Comic Spider-Man, part 60s Spider-Man, a little bit of 90s it is literally all, it is an amalgam
Yeah.
of every other incarnation of the character that has come before, for better
I like
or
it.
for worse.
Yeah.
And at this point, I do like a lot of those homages, but I do think that there's some clashing. It's almost like they don't necessarily know, it doesn't have a unique identity. Like, I can draw comparisons from all of the things that are happening
Sure.
to what has come before.
Sure. I wonder if that will change for you the more we get of this version of the character.
I hope so.
Yeah. And you know, like, in this show's defense too, it's like they are technically the same character, and I do feel like it's probably hard at some point to like, okay, how can we make this completely fresh, completely on its own? I actually think the movies have done an excellent job of doing that, where each one does feel like their own separate character. But you know, I would imagine that like because again, we have a 3-season order of the show, so we got season 2 coming and season 3 coming. So
how many episodes is it? 8 or 10? I can't remember.
10 episodes.
10
season.
episodes. Okay.
So we at least have 30 episodes of the show.
Yeah. And are they dropping? They're dropping 2 a week.
It was 2 this week, 3 next week, 3 the following week, and then 2 the final week.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's a weird.
But I kind of like that though. It's better than Creature Commandos having like a 23-minute episode with 5 minutes worth of credits, and they call it a 30-minute episode.
Yeah, I think I would rather just do 1 more week where it's like 2, 2, 2, 2, just so it's like 5
so
weeks
even.
instead of 4. Yeah.
But it makes sense though. I'm guessing that these are split up into arcs.
I'm thinking they're arcs too.
Like the Clone Wars. Clone Wars had anywhere from a 2 to 3 episode arc to upwards of like a 4 or 5 episode arc.
Right. And yeah, Jonathan, like this is kind of what I was thinking, where it's like this season feels so much like the MCU Spider-Man. I'm curious, as it evolves, will it kind of get to turn into its own
identity?
Exactly. I definitely think that's the case, and I think there's a lot of ideas in these first 2 episodes, a lot of things that they throw at you really quickly. And again, like I think my take on the show so far is like, this is good. I like this. I do like this, but I need more. I need to see what it does. I can't completely judge it so far. Because it's just like people are saying, where is it? Too short. It just like these episodes feel too short to just base it on these 2 episodes. So I need more of that. Let me read some of these comments. Obviously, Stranger says the episode felt too short, though. I feel like it started the episode and it was over. Yeah, that's just I think the 20-minute thing. It's sometimes tough to watch. I mean, I like it, but like it's tough sometimes to watch a 20-minute episode weekly.
But if you watch them back to back, it's about 40 minutes worth of content. Yeah, so that's what you would have gotten in a normal episode. And I'm almost viewing it from that angle. Like, yes, they are 2 separate episodes. You can watch them separately, but you're still getting the same amount of story that you would be getting if they dropped 1 long episode. And I, in a weird way, would almost rather them just drop the 1 long episode rather than splitting it.
Yeah.
Especially because episodes 1 and 2 picked up immediately after each other. It was like there was almost no reason for them.
They felt like one episode.
Split. Yeah.
Do you like the theme song that they have?
I originally liked it, and then the kind of rap portion of it, I don't love.
Interesting.
I really do love the homage though to the classic theme. But I don't love the new elements of the theme, if that makes sense. I like the sequence. I like the design of it. Which really, again, plays into the fact that the show looks like a comic book in the same way that Spider-Verse does. But I think it's like a made for TV Spider-Verse, if that makes sense, and not in a bad way.
And like, what's your thoughts on the animation? Because I will say, I really wanted to love it. I wanted to like defend it. I wanted to be like, oh, this is why they're doing it, and I get why they're doing it, why it looks like this. I still don't love it. It still takes me out
Really?
of the show for me personally.
I don't think it takes me out of the show at all. I think I've seen Spider-Man with better animation, which I think we're almost subconsciously comparing it to things like Spider-Verse, and I know that that's not
Right.
realistic for a TV show, but it still
Right.
has those elements. Like I love when we see the kind of like split panels and it
That's
looks like
sick. Yes.
we're changing pages of a comic book, and I think to be able to get that I guess idea across and that vision, if we have to sacrifice some
Hmm.
detail in the animation, some of the animation quality, I'm willing to do that to preserve the style that they're
Right.
going for.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. Like I think I love
Mm-hmm.
the style. It's a fantastic style. I love what they're doing. It looks like a motion comic. That's sick.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just don't like the anime. Like I think the
Mm.
animation could be stronger. And again, I hope they get more money as they go in to put a little bit more into it. But I don't know. Look. I think by the end of the season, though, it won't bother me because I'll be so used to it. Like I think once I get used to it, I'll be good. Like animation for me, I love animated stuff, and I think if you have a great story, if you have
Oh
like those
yeah.
great characters, I can look past some weak animation. Like
Mm-hmm.
Invincible gets thrown around, like, oh, I don't like the way it looks a lot, like a lot of time. And I've never had that problem, but I understand people who do. But it's like, okay, that's fair. But if everything else is a 10,
Yeah.
I don't really care. Like
Yeah,
it's
at the end of the day, the story matters more. I would much rather have a great story with terrible animation rather
yeah,
than the most beautiful animation I've ever seen, but a bad story.
yeah, for sure. For sure. So I want to bring up. I saw an article that was like, here are some of the Marvel heroes that are in the show that they've established through the show, and who
Hmm.
and like as someone who isn't an expert on the comics, I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. I don't even know who a lot of these characters are, but it's at least cool to see kind of like, oh, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And will they play a role in these characters kind of going forward? So obviously, the one I did know about was Nico. I
Yeah.
knew about Nico through Runaways, which I saw like
Yep.
a season and a half of that show. Were you excited to see her in this at all? Do you have any
Yeah,
thinking of
so
her?
it was funny. Like when I was watching the show, I was trying to pinpoint. Like I was like, that name sounds familiar. That name sounds familiar. And then it wasn't until I actually saw you talking about it that I was like, oh yeah, Runaways, duh.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's a cool character to put in here. You know, I don't know where else we would really see her in the main timeline, so I think
yeah.
that's you know a fun character to throw in.
You think she's gonna like? Because I guess in the prequel comic they kind of like maybe reference maybe like a Runaways thing or whatever. But you
Mm.
think we're ever going to see any side of like the cosmic magical side of her character?
I think potentially, especially if Doctor Strange is going to continue to play a part, maybe that's how
Right.
we you know backdoor into the magic side.
Sure. Yeah. No. And I hope it like I don't know, like I hope it does well enough where people are like, "Hey, bring her to the MCU and we bring back the actress from Runaways."
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be cool. Did you hear who they were thinking about bringing
No,
in
no.
like in her role? They were like, "Okay, we want a iconic Marvel character to be Peter's best friend in this world," and
Hmm.
I guess they almost went with Jessica Jones, a aged
Oh,
down Jessica
interesting.
Jones, and I was like, that would have been kind of
Interesting.
interesting. Like, I think you
Yeah.
could have leaned into like the PI aspect of her character in like a high
Yeah.
school setting. Could have been
Oh
kind of
yeah,
cool.
that could have definitely worked.
Almost like a Mary Jane kind of thing, where it's like, oh, they're both like investigator people, whatever.
Yeah. Well, which again, this also again reminds me of now Ultimate. Remember who were his friends at school? He had Luke Cage, Iron
Iron
Fist,
Fist, yeah.
White
White
Tiger.
Tiger,
Yeah.
yeah. Nova, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like.
That's still the only Nova I really know. Like I don't really
Yeah.
know another take on Nova and stuff like that. So and
Hmm.
Iron Fist really like I kind of hate
Yeah.
saying that because that sounds so bad,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
this one, no, I'll be honest, I don't know this character. Pearl Pagan is Wave. Now when they said like I was like, oh, okay, is this Betty? Is this is this like which one of his like love interests is it? And I was like, Pearl, who's Pearl? I don't know Wave. I
Yeah.
don't know
I'd
this character.
never heard of this character before the show. So.
That's interesting. This one's interesting too. We have like a Hulk character in this show. Do you
Yeah.
think from my understanding in the comics he takes over for Bruce Wayne or Bruce not Bruce Wayne, Bruce Banner in the comics?
Potentially. I had thought that he was an didn't they use him as an Iron Spider as well?
Ooh, I don't know.
I can't remember what's the name of the Iron Spider that's not Peter?
Oh, I don't know.
Trying to look it up. Iron Spider. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Usually Peter Parker before Amadeus Cho takes up the Iron Spider mantle. Okay, that's what
Gotcha.
I was assuming that they were.
I mean, that
setting
would make
there.
a lot more sense.
Yeah,
That would
and
make-
like you said, the other spiders out there. So maybe
Yeah.
he's going around, and we're gonna get a a spider team up.
Right. I've heard of Fitness, but I don't like. I'm not gonna sit here and say I really know much about that character either, which is cool. Like if we adapt all of these different characters, you are introducing me to a whole new line of comic book characters that I probably wouldn't have been introduced otherwise, which is
Yeah, it seems like
really
they're really
sick.
doing a lot of deep cuts.
Yeah, which is like you said, characters that the main MCU are probably not using for a long
Mhm.
time, if ever. Right?
Yeah.
Like I can't see them using. I don't know who this character is. Fitness. Like I can't see them really doing that. I also don't know this character. Asha.
Yeah.
Like it was cool to have like a Wakandan character in here, and like you had her
Mhm.
bracelets that are from the Black Panther movie, which I thought was really cool.
But I think that has some pretty big implications too. Is the fact that this universe is so lived in that Wakanda is just known. You
Right.
know?
It's very lived in, right? Like we have
Yeah.
Captain America, we have Iron Man. I saw someone point out, which I thought was really interesting, that Doctor Strange doesn't seem to be in our timeline, but that would kind of make sense with like if it is MCU adjacent still, where it's like, well, maybe
Mhm.
he's just not Doctor Strange yet, right? If this is set
Potentially,
in like
yeah.
2016, the same time like a Civil War would be taking place,
Mhm.
it makes sense if he wasn't I don't know, just wasn't around yet.
Yeah. So is that confirmed as far as what year it's supposed to take place in?
No, but I'm just thinking because of that Civil War esque scene that's like paralleled, like in like at the end of episode 1, where it's like the exact Civil War scene, but for
Mhm.
Norman instead of Tony. So
Yeah.
to me, that kind of feels like maybe where the split happened.
Yeah.
And they're not on here, but I did see, I was wondering about like Tombstone, because what Lonnie, like his friend that he's
Oh,
met in school,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just Tombstone, right? Like in the comics, that's Tombstone's name. So are we doing like an
Potentially.
age down Tombstone that Peter goes to school with? What's his name? Lonnie, isn't it like
Tombstone.
Lonnie? Again,
Lonnie Lincoln.
Lonnie Lincoln. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going to be his dad or something? Where it's like, oh, his dad, he just shares the same name as his dad. Because I actually kind of don't hate the idea, because like we've already talked about like, oh, he's very liked in school, and like I know that's been a complaint for people. Well, he's popular. I was like, okay, but for how long? Like I
Yeah.
kind of don't hate the idea that he's popular at first, and because of Spider-Man, he loses it. That makes him lose the connection of the people in his life.
Yeah.
You know,
I was
like
honestly thinking he was supposed to be Flash Thompson at first before.
yeah,
Yeah. But
Like,
I'm guessing we're not getting characters like that right now, at least.
or yeah, they might wait, because we still don't
Mhm.
technically have like a love interest for Peter yet. I mean, I guess we have Pearl, right? I guess
Yeah.
Pearl would be love interest, but I don't know if that's the direction they'll go for it. Like you have
Ooh,
Nico, but like
I had an idea.
oh,
I had an idea.
there was an idea.
So, Lonnie Lincoln, if that's his name, or
Yeah.
if that's his name, that maybe is Tombstone, maybe not Tombstone. Right now he's Peter's buddy. We don't have a a Flash Thompson or an Eddie Brock or anything like that. However, I
You make
think
him
you
Venom?
brought up you brought up a good point. He's friends with Peter right now. he thinks he's the greatest, he's smart, whatever, but what if things start going downhill? He starts
Yeah.
getting, jealous of him, that sort of thing. And we got a Venom creature at the beginning
Cool. Yeah.
of the first episode. What if maybe maybe it wasn't an interdimensional multiversal portal, but rather just maybe a time portal
Time travel.
potentially? Yeah, time travel.
Yeah.
And that was a future version of this character who has become some sort of Venom creature.
That could be fun.
That's
That could
my
be
that's
fun.
my tinfoil hat theory for the day.
My only subject to that is I do think he looked so different because he was from like a weird
Oh
kind of
yeah,
multiverse. Like it looked
yeah,
like some kind of like Craven like Venom mashup, which like I thought was
yeah,
cool because he's from the multiverse. So yeah, there's these
hmm
weird variants of these characters, um, which I quite like.
yeah.
But yeah, no, like I kind of don't hate the idea that like we're just kind of seeing this different origin of Tombstone, starting with him and Peter as friends, and it's like, well, maybe
Yeah.
Peter does something to him that leads him on a path of crime and stuff like that. That could be kind of cool because like right now he has a good home life, right? His
hmm
parents love him. He has a good connection with his mom.
Yeah.
He's good at he's good at football and good at sports. But what if Peter does something to mess some of that up? Maybe
Yeah.
or maybe Spider-Man, like maybe Spider-Man, like maybe
Well,
maybe
it was interesting too because the scene where they were both walking on the street, right? And they were like, "Hey, like what you doing after school?" That kind of thing. And they were both
yeah.
like, "Yeah, we're busy, whatever." And then he looked kind of upset that Peter didn't want to like hang out after school.
Mm,
Like maybe that's something that they're gonna dive into is like
sure.
he's like the classic story of like, oh, the popular kid, whatever. But deep down maybe he feels a little bit lonely because he doesn't have like any real true
Mm,
friends.
right.
Um and maybe that's where we get that kind of connection.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would like to see him as friends for
oh yeah,
honestly, this whole season to have them be friends, let some of these things simmer, like let these dynamics because that's why I love so much about Spectacular Spider-Man was that you would
yeah,
let those dynamics simmer for sometimes an entire season to build up and build up and build up until it just steams over. And I feel like I got some of those vibes with how they're kind of doing some of these things. I know
hmm
Dr. Connors was one of the big ones. So I was like, okay, he's going to have this one-on-one, like working side by side with Dr. Connors. Obviously, the internet had their raised bait of like, how dare they turn her to a woman? I was like, that's fine. I don't care.
I was like, cool, no arm. That's all I need.
That's Lizard. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
like
okay.
literally, Lizard has one arm. The end. Like
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. That's all. That's the only thing that defines that character, really.
I'm definitely gonna need Harry because we barely got him.
Yeah,
He had like one scene. Yeah.
yeah, and he's in an interesting spot. So, do you think they go the route of Spectacular, where Harry's the Goblin for a bit, Norman's the Goblin for a bit, or maybe we get a Green Goblin and Hobgoblin situation? Are Peter and Harry even gonna be friends in this
Yeah.
timeline? Because it doesn't seem like they. It's weird, right? So when Peter interacted with him, he interacted with him almost like he was pretending like he didn't know him.
Yeah.
However, obviously, when Peter interacted with Norman, that was the first time he had met him. And if he was friends
Yeah.
with Harry, then he would have known who Norman was.
I'm wondering if they become friends via him having to work with Norman this season.
Yeah.
Like Peter
Yeah.
comes by the like institution or whatever, and he's
hmm
like maybe at his house doing stuff with Norman or whatever. I think that could be cool. And again, I think Norman is the bit that I'm most
Yeah.
excited about the show by far. Like that's I think
100%.
uh Colin Domingo, I think is his actor's name. Fantastic actor. I just watched
Yeah.
Sing Sing a couple weeks back. Should have been up for Best Picture. He is phenomenal. He is an
Yeah.
incredible actor to the
I
point where
love
I'm like,
I love the character design too.
he looks cool. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm at my point, like put him in the MCU. Just like make him your main Norman. Like I would be completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, it's that dynamic of like, how is Peter going to kind of guide that line of like, this is what Spider-Man means to me, but also adding that influence to Norman. How like
Yeah.
I think at first it's gonna be like, okay, this is super cool. I think very similar to like a Venom situation where slowly he's like, maybe this isn't the best interest of our city, our neighborhood, and I think like I think he will be the main villain of the season. I think by the end we're going to see that clash. And then I think this will lead to Norman being like, oh, okay, like he's not going to do the things I want him to do. I'm going to put a suit on myself. I'm going to try this hero thing out, or what he dubs to be a hero thing out. Maybe how crazy would this be if he's like, okay, I can't be a superhero. Maybe my son can be a superhero. Here's some serum, son. Take this serum. Yeah. You're a superhero now. Like, what if he creates Harry to be like Green Goblin?
I think inadvertently that's what's going to happen. I think Harry is going to look at it from the outside, see his father very similarly to what we've seen in the past. His father take interest in Peter, kind of treat him better than he even treats his own son. Doing all of these things for him to help him become the best Spider-Man he possibly can, giving him the suit and all of that. And Harry gets jealous, and then that's where we get Green Goblin from.
Yeah.
I think that's another possibility. Cool. That also just reminded me of my other big nitpick, the last nitpick of the the episodes. Peter Parker is super smart. Yep. He made his own web fluid. He made a homemade suit and everything like that. He goes to this highly advanced school, yet he is too dumb to realize that there are cameras in the stairwell of a highly secure building, that being Oscorp. Not a big deal, because we had to get to the point where Norman knew who Spider-Man was, but I think that's kind of silly.
I've heard that criticism going around as well. Yeah, and I guess just and again, this shouldn't be like an excuse, because it is on the writing, but also I can imagine he was very excited. He was in a rush. He needed to put out this fire and then also get back in time for to get back to his classes and also the party later that night and all these things. I can kind of write it off as like he wasn't thinking. Like he had a moment, he was just kind of doing whatever, but it's fair. And also I could throw out, he's still kind of newer at doing this whole hero thing. Maybe he's not used to there being cameras around. Like, it's a small town neighborhood, it seems. There's not a lot of security cameras just kind of like laying around and stuff like that. So I can maybe put that on him. I will say, prior to us kind of moving on here, I think the scene everyone's talking about, and I agree, is the best scene of the episode, is that scene with him in front of the store owner when he brings him the mugger and be like, listen, this is the person that mugged you. Here's your money, but maybe give them a second chance. Like, they're just low on income. They needed to feed their family. Is there any way we can let them off with a warning? And to me, that was so Spider-Man. Like, at his
that might have been the most Spider-Man thing he did.
Yeah. And I think you talked about like each Spider-Man kind of leaning into their own. That is the kind of stuff I want to see more of.
Yes.
Like that was
or him putting the fish back in the fish tank too.
Yes.
After I think that was great as well.
I think that's the best part of the show is when and I'm glad they changed the name from Freshman Year to Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, because that's the stuff they're leaning into. I really like. I think why I enjoyed the show so much, because it was to me such a fresher breath air comparatively to what the MCU is currently doing. Love the MCU. Very high stakes. Very end of the world.
And that's my biggest problem.
Fantastic Fours. It's nice to have like a man who is just saving the day. This is like, well, here's a fish.
Just a man who can stick to walls and
and again, I love the MCU Spider-Man. I think it's fantastic. They're all world-ending, like end of the world things, which is I want Spider-Man 4 to like be more small scale. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anymore. But it's nice to have this. I was like, this is nice.
And it proves that he does that. This is a Peter Parker with a heart of gold. Like he needs to be like that.
Yes. I'm curious, like you've gave a lot of criticisms, and I've gave a couple, but like I do think that they can clean a lot of this up. Like I do think it
Yeah,
could
I
be
am
a
overall optimistic.
yeah. I'm kind of waiting for like a No Way Home, where it's like all these things that you thought you hated are kind of getting fixed up by the end and being like, this is why we were doing these things. It was kind of our intention at the start to do these things, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of waiting for some of that. And again, with 3 seasons, like that excites me because there's so much potential for these storylines. That's going to be at least 30 episodes of this show, which is that already more than Spectacular Spider-Man got with its 2 seasons?
No, I don't.
How many did they?
think
Because they had
so.
13 each, right? Didn't they have like 20 odd episodes or something?
26, 2 seasons and 26 episodes. So yeah,
So,
you're
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Wow.
they will have more. Which is sad. I really,
Dude, bring back Spectacular Spider-Man.
yeah. Did you see the actor's post on Twitter?
No.
What's the actor's name again?
What was it, Josh Keaton?
Josh Keaton. Yes, he
Yeah.
made a post about this show.
Okay. And I
Hold
know
on,
he's
let me
come
pull it up.
back to voice Spider-Man other times. He was in, was it Shattered Dimensions?
hmm
Something else, I feel
Let me
like.
see if I can find it. I mean,
Obviously, he was in Across the Spider-Verse, but...
Yes. Okay, let me pull up this tweet really quickly, and then we'll move on to our next thing. Unless you have any kind of final thoughts on the show. That we
No,
haven't
I just
mentioned.
think final thoughts. I just want to make it clear that I don't hate the show at all. Like I actually really enjoyed it. I'm very much so looking forward to the next few episodes. I'm very, I don't want to say protective, but very particular, I guess is the best way to put it when it comes to Spider-Man and what I like and what I don't like about the character, just because he means so much to me. And
Sure.
in the same way that you're talking about the old Fantastic Four movies being kind of like your entry into superhero stuff, it was the Fantastic Four movies, X-Men, but most importantly,
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Sure.
And I think that I have this specific particular idea of what Spider-Man's backstory is, how he acts, and why he
Yeah.
is the way that he is. And if when they deviate from it, it takes me some time to,
Sure.
learn to love it. Like, I really liked Spider-Man Homecoming when it came out. I still do, but I didn't love where they took the story post Homecoming. I wish
Sure.
that they would have stuck a little closer to
Sure.
that. And if we can kind of replicate what we've gotten in past Spider-Man incarnations, but still make it feel like its own thing, I'm gonna be happy.
Right. And does it help at all? Because like I do think the Spider-Verse movies have kind of affected how I think about all these different adaptations, where it's like, well, in canon, they all exist within each other within the giant multiverse. And I think
Yeah.
I think scenarios kind of like this works better for me sometimes, where it's like, well, this is just this Earth Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah,
there's
100%.
there is the version of the character that you love, just like right across the corner, where you can have like a spider, monster truck, or like a spider pig, or like a,
That's
like
true.
all these like weird versions that
Yeah.
are different than the one you kind of know.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really great way of looking at it. I love that.
Yeah, and then Josh Keaton posted this like
Yeah.
sometime earlier in the week. He said just somewhere doing stuff. Do you think?
That's cool.
Do you think he has a role in here?
I would love
That'd
that.
be cool.
It just voice some random character.
It,
That'd be
it,
great.
it had crossed my mind where it's like, what if he's Uncle Ben? Like what if there's a Backlash
Oh.
episode he's Uncle Ben? That'd be kind of
That'd
sick.
be really cool. That would be really fun, actually. I like that. I'm gonna stick with that.
That'd be really. I think that's the best role they could give him. Can you make his voice sound like old enough though to?
Yeah.
Because like everyone was like, like they're gonna recast Josh Keaton with this new kid. For one, I wouldn't like that because it's not Spectacular Spider-Man, right? Like I don't
Mhm.
think that feels. That just
Yeah.
feels kind of weird. Like if you're gonna bring him back as Spider-Man, bring back his Spider-Man. I don't want I don't want them just like Kevin Conroy it and be like, oh, he's all the Spider-Mans or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Jonathan says they want to try and make Spider-Man more than just a street-level hero by having him fight the Avenger threats and doing... Yeah, which I I don't hate, but I do want a
Mhm.
Spider-Man movie that feels like Spider-Man. That has it's more small
Yeah.
scale,
Yeah,
and then you can go back to End of the World. I don't care, but I think
there's a
he at
time
least
and a
needs one.
place.
Yeah.
Right, there's a time and a place for it. Think about how the 90s Spider-Man was laid out, right? So it was mostly small scale things. The largest, ideas that he got into were, a bunch of Kingpin stuff. We did do Secret Wars, which we're going to get to. We got Secret Wars. And then we
He
did the
did?
big, yeah, yeah. And then we did the big
Really?
multiversal thing. Then we did the big, multiversal thing at the end.
I haven't seen
So
it, so I can't say. But
yeah, yeah, you gotta
crazy.
you've got to, yeah.
I
I mean,
started
it
it and I
it
haven't gone back
ended in
around.
it ended in such a weird way though.
Hmm.
And then you've got Spider-Man Unlimited, which is kind of technically sort of connected
Hmm.
to it, but not really.
If you like that '90s show, I might recommend X-Men '97. There may be something
Yeah.
in there for you for those
Yes.
Spider-Man fans. That
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if
Yes.
you saw those things that were going around when that show came out, but
I
they
think
made
I
those
did.
fans
I think I
happy.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our first show, and I do think we are going to start with Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, because I think I have more to say about Invincible, and I kind of really want to spend time with that show. Although I have a lot to say about both of these shows. So Darth has not seen Spider-Man, so it's going to be just me and Taz kind of talk back and forth for a little bit here. So I was really excited for talking about this show this week as well, because we slightly disagreed last
Yeah.
week, not in a large regard. I think we both kind of felt the same, but in like different degrees of that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But you said before I had even seen the episode, hey, this is doing a little bit better for me. I think I'm liking this a bit more. So
Yeah.
talk about that really quickly. What was your like overall thoughts on these next 3 episodes that we got this week?
Yeah, so you're right. That was pretty much my initial reaction after watching these three. I was like, okay, now I'm kind of into it. Like I wasn't completely sold after the first couple of episodes had dropped last week, or I guess a couple weeks ago at this point now. But just it felt like the show really kind of found its footing. It kind of found its identity, and it really kind of came more into its own. I kind of got the sense as far as where the show was heading. We got confirmations of certain things that we were speculating on the previous week, like the moment that we got more of the kind of Tombstone development, and when we got the Tombstone name drop, I was like, oh man, Darren's gonna be so happy about this. Like we were talking about it, and he's like, Tombstone, yeah, I kind of like that name. Like, I think stuff like that was really fun. Seeing how the dynamic between Peter and Norman changed after he kind of, laid all his cards out. He seems to have very genuine intentions now. Like he wants to help Peter because Spider-Man saved his son.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, I want to give you all the tech. I want to give you all the suits. I want to, do everything that I can for you. And Peter was like, hold up, wait a minute. Like I was kind of doing things on my own. I don't know if I, number one, don't know if I need the help. Number two, I don't want to put anybody else at risk. But I think once they started kind of working together, once they kind of worked all the kinks out of all of the, I guess, rejected suits and everything, I thought that was a fun montage.
Yeah.
We got to what kind of looks like a Future Foundation style suit, which is the Oscorp suit, and we got a little bit more world building. We got to see Doc Ock. I think that was a big surprise for me, and he looks, again, ripped straight out of a comic book, which is, again, another testament to the animation style of this series. But I really think that Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is on a much better trajectory after these few episodes, because it did feel a lot more self-contained. We didn't have any of the multiversal stuff. We didn't have any of the Doctor Strange stuff. The only small little, I wouldn't even call it a gripe, but my only worry was the fact that we got some big events from the MCU that were intertwined into the story.
Yeah.
Yes, they were in the background, but they were still intertwined. We got mentions of the Sokovia Accords and how could that, affect Peter and things like that. So we now, I guess, know, number one, where it is in the timeline, but also know that certain MCU events have happened in this alternate universe. We know Ultron happened. We know Civil War is happening, that sort of thing. So it's interesting, and I guess again it pinpoints us. So you were right. We are in 2016 apparently as well. So yeah, what was your kind of overall thoughts on this one?
I mean, I said last week that I was like, I felt like I was at a crossroads. I was like, I like it, but I'm not sold yet, and I need more to really tell me how I'm feeling. I just need a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I felt like these next three were really going to make it on one way or the other for me.
Yeah.
I'm really into it.
That's good.
I think I fully am like, okay, this is a really strong show with really strong writing. And actually, to play like devil's advocate a little bit here, I really like the Soviet Accord stuff here.
Okay.
I think that's really fun, to the point where it's like, okay, this truly is a what if series. Like, this is genuinely what I wanted from What If. I think this scenario is like 100 times cooler than almost anything that the What If series did. I kind of fixed a couple of my problems with MCU Spider-Man, where it's like, I love Civil War. I do love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But it never did quite sit with me that he was on Team Iron Man. I was always kind of like, I think he would have always kind of been on Team Captain America. I think he always would have been, everyone should be entitled to their own freedoms and their own, responsibilities. And I think like he would have like related very hardly where it's like, well, this kind of power in the wrong hands is what got Uncle Ben killed, and all that kind of fun stuff. Right. So I never loved that he was on more Team Iron Man. He had a lot of the more. I never thought he would have like loved Iron Man, just as like, not to say he couldn't be friends with Iron Man, but
that's my big thing about MCU Spider-Man is I just think Peter being friends with Iron Man in that regard, or like looking up to Iron Man as like an idol figure, I think that is a big deviation from the way that I perceive Spider-Man. And again, you're right, this is a much more in line with what I would feel Peter would do, is he would be like, oh, wait, whoa, like this is,
Yeah, like I kind of feel like, and again, I love the MCU Spider-Man. I think he's amazing. Tom Holland's fantastic. But I kind of was like, this kind of would have been cool if this was like the mainline MCU Spider-Man, because it kind of feels like they took all the criticisms from the MCU Spider-Man. I was like, okay, let's give that like let's make that a show of like what people don't like about that Spider-Man and kind of shake it up a little bit. And I loved the idea. I loved that the Accords are going on in that world, and like Norman's like, well, that's not your responsibility, which he's right. Not responsibility. That's funny, but like, because what does Spider-Man have different than every other hero on both Team Cap and Team Captain America?
Secret identity.
Secret identity. That too.
And a secret identity.
Yeah. So the Accords technically don't resolve him, right? Like they can't do anything to Spider-Man for the law because he's a vigilante, right? He doesn't abide by the same
bring that
rules.
up. Yeah, he is a vigilante in that regard. He's not a sanctioned hero.
Yeah. So I think that could have made Homecoming such an interesting movie. While the state of heroes were fundamentally changing, he was not, right? He was the outlier of this entire universe, and he's that person that's kind of like looking out for the little guy and stuff like that, like amongst all of this drama with superheroes. Like I think that could have been a really cool plot line if they wanted to go that direction. And again, I don't know how far they're going to go into like the MCU lore and stuff like that. Like I don't know how much they're going to focus on that here. I assume they'll probably, like you said, keep it semi-separate.
Yeah, I'm cool with it being like in the background. I just don't want them to, I guess, retread the same water. Yeah.
And to answer your question, Garth,
of the MCU,
it is separate. Like it's like a what if story. It's like it's clearly inspired by the events of the MCU, but it has deviated into its own thing, if that makes sense.
It's a what if 2.0.
Yes, it's very what if. Like this whole show feels like a what if story to me. And I think the better way. This is like, oh, this is what I wanted What If to be. These fundamental changes that change what the MCU is at its core, and these characters at their core. So, I mean, how are you feeling on Norman Taz? Because I'll be honest, I think he's one of, if not my favorite parts of the show so far.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really,
I love him right now. I'm gonna be very upset when we have to hate him. You know,
yeah,
I mean, if it gets to that point, like again, we could see a Harry Green Goblin beforehand, but the fact that we didn't get Harry kind of being upset that Norman was working with Peter and kind of keeping that from him as far as all the Spider-Man stuff, and he just immediately joins Team Spider-Man and they're buddies now. It's gonna be interesting to see how that crumbles. Like right now, they seem very solid. They seem like a good team. Like Norman just seems like a guy who wants to help. Harry doesn't have much going on. He doesn't have any true real friends that know him. The way that he wants them to know him, I guess, is the best way. And Peter having this big secret and not very many people knowing that side of him, and then Peter knowing this other side of Harry, I think that creates a very good friendship, and I'm excited to see how that blossoms. I'm excited to see again how Norman plays into it and what causes Norman potentially to go down a darker route. Like what threat pops up that he has to, start creating a goblin formula or the suit or the glider or something like that. And I think the more we talk about it, oddly enough, a lot of storylines from Spider-Man this week can kind of parallel what we got in Invincible, actually.
yeah,
Because we got, mentions of the Sokovia Accords and Civil War and stuff like that, and we kind of had our own Invincible Civil War a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, what side are you on? Are you Team Mark? Are you Team Cecil? Same thing here. I think that's very coincidental that they both kind of happened in the same week, but also very, very cool at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I unfortunately have to throw doubt at Osborn. I have a theory. So
Okay.
that suitcase that the villains had in episode 1 had a little Oscorp logo on the suitcase. So I was like, Peter just said no to his offer. What if he's like, hey guys, go get Spider-Man's attention for he can stop him, and he just happened to be tech support at the exact time he needed him. I'm like, did he frame these very easy low grade villains just so Spider-Man can stop him, just for Norman has to save him, just for he will join Team Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
I would not put it past him. And does that necessarily make him evil? I guess not, no, but it's definitely disingenuous. It's definitely...
Right.
And look why.
Creating
people get hurt.
Yeah.
Was there a chance of people getting hurt for his kind of power play? If so, then he's definitely a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's creating a...
damage, you're definitely a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creating a problem.
Explosion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's creating a problem to then swoop in as the hero and save the day.
It's very
so that
syndrome,
people view you.
Right?
Yeah. So, my only rebuttal to that, right, is are we sure that 100% that was an Oscorp logo, or was that a logo for Doc Ock, who we meet later, who we know is divvying out the tech? However, there could be that extra layer that, okay, where is Doc Ock getting these resources from? He's maybe being funded by Norman. That's a possibility, whether he knows it or not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to see that backstory for this Dr. Octopus, because he already has that anger towards Norman, towards Tony, towards Bruce Banner. So I'm really excited. I don't know if we'll do flashbacks or whatever, but I'm so excited to see this version's origin of the character, because I'll be honest, I think my favorite version of Dr. Octopus, and we've seemingly have given this to Osborn, right? But like my favorite version of this is like when he's a teacher to Peter, right? Like when he's a mentor to him, and they're very close. So like that transition from full octopus is so devastating to him, like in the Insomniac, like in the Raimi movies. So I'm curious to see how we navigate that going into this version of the character, because he seems very isolated on its own. He already seems evil, like already kind of without the,
without the tentacles.
Yeah. So that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not expecting him to pop up when he did, but I think that was a layer of the show that I needed. Like, I needed that additional Spider-Man villain connection. Like, we got some of that in, we see, Dr. Connor's the lizard before she turns into the lizard. Cool. We saw, like, a symbiote creature from another universe. Cool, whatever. But we didn't have an immediate threat of a recognizable Spider-Man villain. So I think introducing Doc Ock in the way that they did, where he's kind of a background shadow player who is, creating villains by handing out tech. Then, you get to the bottom of that and you find out who's the guy in charge there. And then that, leads into, I wonder if he is going to end up being the big bad of the season. I know, what is it, a 3-season plan so far? Yeah. So I wouldn't expect, honestly, Norman to be a threat until back half of season 2, beginning of season 3.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be kind of a slow burn.
I would like them to slow burn it too. I want to feel the effects of it. This is something I've talked about, and I don't know if you saw my tweets on this. And this may just be my CW assessed brain, but this show does kind of feel like an Arrowverse show, in particularly Flash season 1, or just Flash in general, especially season 1, because there's the elements of okay, this is Team Spider-Man. Okay, we have the tech person. Okay, we have the behind the scenes making stuff people. How it writes its melodrama, how it writes its characters and stuff like that. This kind of very low level, Peter's just kind of going around stopping these small scale bad guys, slowly building up to characters like your Captain Cold and your Heatwave, but starts off as this little villain that no one's kind of heard of, right? And so it definitely has, and this is not a bad thing, because again, I love the Flash season 1. That's one of my favorite seasons of TV ever. It definitely has those CW vibes a little bit, which I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was getting those exact same vibes from it. The only thing that it's missing is a masked character, or a masked villain that we don't know their true identity. But yeah, well, I guess kind of in a way we've got that with the Tombstone arc. He's not masked or anything like that, but it's a friend who is turning into a foe. So
yeah, and they would do that a lot, where it's this very iconic villain, they work with the character, or they went to high school with the character, and you're transforming them slowly through the journey of the season. Which I mean, let's talk about that. Lonnie,
tragic.
Man, they did such a good job at making us fall in love instantly with this guy, just making him the greatest guy you've ever known in your life. There's that scene when he's like, I'm gonna buy you guys lunch, and he realizes, oh shit, I don't have enough lunch money, so he buys them lunch, and he doesn't get anything. He only has an apple. And it's man, you're too good for this world to then put him in a world where he's not used to, a world that's so contrast to his personality, and to save the people he loves.
Yeah, he joins this gang to save his brother. And we know where that's going to eventually lead him to is a crime boss in New York City. Yeah. So.
And again, I'm not a Lonnie Lincoln expert. I haven't read every Lonnie Lincoln comic book, but I don't know if we've ever seen him young and get to go up the ranks. He's normally just already the crime boss already. So he's this guy. That's such a genius idea to introduce him here, where he's a kid, everyone likes him, and we're going to slowly see the tragedy take place within him. We're going to see the corruption of New York shape the youth, and how messed up this universe can be to people. And by the end also, you're kind of I get why this could be important. I get why, despite them being corrupt and evil, they are also just people who care about their own people, and in their minds are doing what's best for the city, right? And it's man, this is really well made writing, I thought.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think that they did a really good job of, I guess, quelling all my fears from the first few episodes. they doubled down on all of the ideas that I liked. And again, really separated themselves from other Spider-Man projects. Like you said, we've not seen an origin of a villain like this. We have not seen somebody like we have seen, yes, friends turn into enemies and things like that, but we haven't seen it to this degree where there are no evil intentions. Even getting the name Tombstone, he's not doing it maliciously. He's just thrown into this bad situation because his brother, got himself wrapped up into this, street gang that he shouldn't have done. Right. And now he, Lonnie is sacrificing everything, his, football career, school, friends, all of that just to ensure his brother doesn't get into trouble. And the fact that that will turn him down into a life of crime, that's crazy. However, I guess they are doing things a little bit differently, so who knows? Maybe Tombstone's going to end up being kind of a good guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious, because I think, honestly, I wonder if they make that the kind of big bad of the season in a way. Not necessarily Lonnie, but Scorpion, right? If Scorpion's the main villain of the season, then Peter has to cross paths with what Lonnie is doing, but also he can't let him know that he knows Lonnie. It's just like, holy shit. Oh no! What are you doing here? And that is how the lives of Peter Parker and Spider-Man can kind of connect to each other.
Right.
So that could be interesting. And we're talking a big bad, but we have 5 episodes left, so it's not like there's gonna be. I don't know if you need a massive big bad. It's just gonna be okay, who ends the season as the villain?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So it's another three episodes next week.
3 episodes next week, and then the final week is 2 episodes. Yeah.
2, okay.
So 2,
3, 2, 3, 3, 2.
And it's in I don't know what I would prefer, because I'd be okay with 1 episode a week or even 2 episodes a week. I feel like I could have enjoyed this a lot slower. I feel like you could have done the slow burn, but also I think it's also kind of working. I think bunching it like this, because this week's drop was an hour and a half of content. That's basically like a movie. So I don't know how I feel about that.
I am actually okay with it. Yes, for content purposes, for streaming purposes, it's a little rough. Also, maybe it's tough for people who are super, super busy. They're like, okay, I can set aside 30 minutes a week to watch this episode, but setting aside an hour and a half is a lot. But for people like us who really want to sit down and watch these types of things, I'm like, oh, an hour and a half worth of content? That's amazing. Sure. That'll last me, throughout the day, that sort of thing. I'm enjoying the way that this is dropping. However, it's going to definitely suck when we're done in 3 weeks.
2 weeks.
What I'm saying is 3 full weeks of content dropping. Oh, right. So so it's only a month-long show. So 4 weeks including the original drop. Yeah.
Because we get new episodes in 2 days, and then this one will get after that. So it's
yeah. I guess the only silver lining to that is the fact that we do know that we're getting more seasons.
Sure.
In a weird way, I almost would rather. So if it's 10 30-minute episodes, I almost would rather them drop 1 or 5 hour-long episodes 1 week at a time.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that might be a slightly better way of doing it, but again, just for the style of animation that it is, maybe it's better from Disney's perspective to keep them as 30-minute episodes, because I guess why do they split them, right? Because again, we're on Disney Plus, we're on a streaming service. They don't have to worry about commercial breaks or anything like that. So why are we splitting the content into 30-minute chunks when, again, each episode seems to really pretty much just pick up right after the other one?
You could do 1
or at least within the arc, at least within these arcs, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just trying to emulate okay, 1 day, right? Because each episode is like a singular day. And I'll say honestly, if I was doing spin, I probably would have done episode 3 with episode 1 and 2, because those feel like an arc. Like that feels like a whole circle thing. And then do episodes 4 and 5 this week,
4
and
and
then
5
onward.
together.
Yeah. I liked episode 3 a lot. I think episode 3 is my favorite season, or my favorite episode of the season so far. I really, because the whole thing about like we talked about, like what are his morals, what does he stand for? I really loved everything surrounding the Norman and Peter thing, about like him sitting down and being like, yo, I gathered all this together just to get you here. You know, him and Peter really sitting down, like sitting down and being like, this is not, I don't do it for money. I don't do it for all this. If I let you help me, then I am putting you and potentially a whole company of people in danger.
Yeah.
So maybe it's better that I leave, you know, Oscorp and your money aside to do it. I really felt that. Yeah, I really felt the like Spider-Man-ness in him that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and kind of like it's my responsibility, not yours. You know, while I would appreciate the help, while I'm sure it would make me a better Spider-Man, like I can't put you at risk.
Right.
However, you know, he was eventually convinced to do so. And do you think this is going to bite him in the spider butt by the end of the season? Like he's gonna have to, like, you know, Norman's gonna put something in his suit, or maybe it's gonna be able to be hacked, or it, you know, fritzes out, that sort of thing, and he realizes, okay, no, I need to actually create my own tech and do my own maintenance on my suit and things like that, so that it is exactly the way that I need it to be, and I don't run the risk of, you know, a villain hacking into my suit because it's using, you know, a circuitry or, you know, a program that, you know, the villains could have access to, when I need to, you know, make my own version of that.
Yeah. I do think he's going to have, like, I think for him to be Spider-Man, he is going to have that same homecoming arc of, like, the suit doesn't make the hero. I am a hero. I have enough in what's made in here to stop any bad guy that comes my way. And I think we're definitely seeing that red and, you know, that like iconic red-blue you know, red-white suit by the end of the season. As much as I really like this white suit, I think it looks really, really cool. How many episodes until it's like, okay, but we want the red suit, right? We want the iconic suit. So, and he's really not Spider-Man at his core when he's with Oscorp, right? It's very much just kind of like, yeah.
And Norman was like, and Norman was basically like, why do you need to be Spider-Man? Like, you're a hero. Cool. Like, I think that was a very interesting dilemma. Something that I actually just kind of thought about while we were talking about this. It is a 3-season story arc, right? But what if we don't actually see the classic red and blue suit until season 3? What if season 2? What if season 2 is symbiote? What if they just jump right into symbiote because we already had that teased? I don't think that'd be too far out of the realm of possibility, and I think the symbiote would actually mesh with the current suit very well, and that would show why it becomes fully black, right? Because it's a black and white, or I can't even tell if that's actually black and white or if it's very, very deep blue and white. I guess that's a debate to have. But I think that would actually be pretty interesting, that throughout the whole series, he doesn't really fully adapt that Spider-Man identity until he's allowed to actually sit with himself and see, okay, no, I'm not, you know, an Oscorp soldier. No, I'm not, Bully Maguire with the with the symbiote suit. I am Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man.
Sure.
You know, this is who I'm supposed to be. This is who I'm meant to be, and this is how I can help the most people, by being the most true, authentic version of myself as this hero.
Right. That could definitely be fun. I don't know if I want Venom necessarily, though. Like, I don't know. I think I enjoyed it a little bit when he's kind of been doing it for a little while, and he's kind of getting a bit tired, and, just kind of, all the stress is kind of waning down on him. But, again, this is a very different take on the character. They're clearly being very experimentative. Let's talk about some of his friends really quickly. So we got... Oh gosh, I said Toby, not Toby. Norman's son. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Harry.
Harry, thank you. It was gone. Yeah, we got more of Harry this week, which I needed because that little bit we had in episode 1 was not enough to get an impression on.
Yeah.
How are you feeling on Harry? Because I'll be honest, I'm not totally convinced yet. Not that I dislike him, but he is so different from the counterparts I think I know of him so far that right now he is almost a different character, which is not an issue for me. I just need to relearn this character, right? So
yeah, I think he is Harry Osborn in name, but I would almost say he's closer to like Ned or even Miles's friend, Genki.
Yeah, Genki. Yeah,
I think he's a little bit closer to them, or maybe an amalgam of the two. Just because he seems to be more so into like the tech side of things, and he's like, oh, I want to be your guy in the chair, and that's it. Ned from Homecoming. So it is interesting. They are definitely giving us a very different take on Harry, and the most recent iteration we had of him was Spider-Man 2 in the game. Which also again was a slightly different version, but I think he drew a lot of similarities to the Harry that we got, say, in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, because of he was dying from this disease and that sort of thing, but instead of becoming the Goblin, he got the Venom symbiote. So
yeah, I think maybe that's just to start me off, because I think Harry's normally like always kind of a bit of an asshole. You know what I mean? Like he's always a bit of a prick. And this guy, and not to say he's not a prick, because he might be, but we haven't seen, everyone else thinks he's a prick, but he hasn't been one.
But he's really
yet.
not. Yeah. So, like, people perceive him as the Harry Osborn that we know of. But under that, surface level, he is actually it seems like he's a genuinely good person. And the same thing with Norman, right? Is, Peter's friend, what's her name? That's from Runaways. Yeah. Nico? Yeah. So she didn't like doesn't really like Norman, doesn't really like Harry. Her view on them is how we would think of them from the comics or from other media, right? Is, Norman, evil businessman, Harry, kind of, a jerky, just spoiled rich kid, that, is just kind of running around doing whatever he wants. But the way that we are actually learning about these characters and from Peter's interactions with them is they seem like very genuinely good people that they're just both trying to help. But again, that could just be a facade. We don't know. But I hope that at least for now we get to see them in this new light.
Yeah, I'm gonna be curious. Because I feel like it could potentially lead to a really if you're ever going to the Goblin route eventually. I know sometimes Harry's a Goblin. That could be a really cool kind of motivation for the character, because he seems like he's very lonely. People don't like him. People can't trust him. He's he comes off as kind of a prick, and I could see this being like, well, I need to show them no one likes me because I'm me. Let me advance myself with A, B, and C. Let me and we can maybe see Norman push him to that, because I'm really liking my theory from last week where we talked about maybe if things don't work out with Peter, he still maybe wants a superhero he can train, he can morph. Maybe he's like, hey son, I raised you very well. You've been watching Peter for months now. Let's make you a superhero. I made the serum. Yeah. You want to try this out, son? I think that could be really cool. Being like, no one likes you. You're you're not as popular as you should be. You're so lonely. Let me help you get there, kind of thing. Which I think could be really fun. And that's the direction I want to go in.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm excited though. I think again this proves that they did definitely go down the right track of saying, hey, we're going to make this different. We're going to have elements of all the previous Spider-Man stories that you guys know and love. We're going to splice things in from the most popular incarnations like the MCU and things like that, but we're still going to be doing our own thing, and I really love that. And the fact that they doubled down on, okay, no, this is our own interpretation. Again, I think that worked perfectly this week.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's definitely grown on itself. I really loved the all the suit montages that we got this week as well. We get to see, again, I'm not a comic expert, but obviously all these suits from the comic books they got to display. Probably no other context that these suits would ever be seen in an adaptation of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it's very cool that they got to be oh, here's this flying one, and here's this black suit, and it's very Spider-Man PS4, where it's these aren't practical in the least. We'll never actually use these, but here they are on display.
But they look cool. They'll sell some toys. Absolutely. I did see somebody bring up the fact too, the little girl who lost her balloon and then got scared by the all blacked out Spider-Man suit. Mm-hmm. There was a side mission or something in the Spider-Man 2 PS2 game where this kid lost her balloon and it was the same line "balloon, come back" or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So we're even getting deep cuts to the games. Hopefully, if we see Mysterio,
there's a lot of references. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, if we see Mysterio, he gets a giant health bar, and we get to beat him in one punch.
Yeah. His boss, Mr. J, is that Mr. Big something? His boss was what did he say? He's what did he say from the Raimi movies? I miss where that's my problem. That's it. He threw that line out where it's
I miss the part where that's my problem.
Yeah. Yeah. He said the thing. He said the thing. We also I want to talk about Nico a little bit because we didn't get a lot of Nico in these 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. But we did a thing at the end with Nico and Peter, and they had a little movie thing. Now, I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of went into this show kind of expecting her to be a lesbian, right? I just kind of went in with that's how she was in Runaways. But I'm thinking maybe she might be bi in this continuity. Do we think she has feelings for Peter by how the episode ended? Or do you think that was a different feeling that she had?
I don't know. I'm more so thinking just that she's under the impression that Peter's got this new fancy internship. He's making all these new friends, and then he doesn't have time for his friends. Yeah, right. Specifically her. She's the little people, basically, right? Is he's hit the big time. He's friends with superstar or football superstar star Lonnie Lincoln. He's trying to do all of this stuff with the Spider-Man side of things, being friends with Harry and Norman, and she just feels left out. I think is really the thing that they're doing there. Yes, is it a possibility? But I'm not necessarily getting those vibes right now. I could be wrong, but I think it's more so just feeling left out as a friend.
Sure. And I think I'd prefer that.
I would too.
Yeah, I don't need them as a love interest. There's so many love interests for Peter that they can introduce. I mean, they've already introduced Pearl, which again, I don't know that character personally, but that seems like it could be almost there, Liz, where it's the one that got away kind of thing.
Yeah. I do know it's also always a debate too, right? Is you have your main character and they can't have friends that people don't ship them with, or they're they have to be in a relationship. But it's in the real world, you have friends of the opposite gender or the same gender that you're not interested in that way. They're just your buddy.
Yeah.
So I think that's I think that again, drawing comparisons to the real world in that way, making it seem more real in that regard.
No, I would have I don't really have a desire to have hook those two characters up. On the other side of that though, I'm open to there's not a lot of great bi representation in media either. So, as someone who is bi, it would be kind of cool to see something like that in a major Spider-Man thing at the same time. So, but you can also do that without it being with Peter too, right? You could just have that, with another character or whatever. So, I'm trying to think, is there anything that we missed? Oh, I mean, we did kind of get a little bit of Rhino, this seemed, or set up for a Rhino. which I actually really like how they did that. I thought that was kind of a fun way, similar to Tombstone. We're seeing Rhino before he turns into Rhino. It's very Smallville, or like very Gotham, where it's like these are these characters before they become like the supervillains. Spectacular Spider-Man kind of did a very similar thing with some of their villains, but I don't know. I'm kind of vibing with that. I think that's very fun. Like these are very. Like, I don't know who Unicorn is. I didn't know that was a Spider-Man villain prior to this episode, if it even is a Spider-Man villain. But we got a Unicorn. You know, we had the people from episode 3. Those are...
I honestly kind of thought Unicorn was just supposed to be a gender-swapped Rhino. that was my thought. But I was like, oh yeah, but all these other, like, dudes with Russian accents, one of them has to be
I think the Rhino. Big one is supposed to be, like... the actual Rhino, or like
I can't remember what is Rhino's name.
Oh, I know it. It's blanking on it though.
Alexei. Yeah, Alexei Sitsevich.
Did they? Can I look in the credits really quickly, see if they gave him a name?
Yeah, I feel like I can't remember. Did they say it was Alexei?
I don't think they said his name, but maybe it's in the credits. Maybe it's listed. And like just how it ended, I thought it was such a cool way to kind of set that up, because like the whole time I was like, is it not? But the way it's like, next time I see you, I will kill you. And it's like, okay, that's probably set up for, if not Rhino, a villain, right? Like you don't do that if you don't want to do that.
And was one of the other guys supposed to be Chameleon?
Oh, are they? I didn't pick up on that.
I don't know. That again, just the kind of accent is what I'm kind of picking up on. So
is there anybody in the show that so far that you're hoping makes it over to Spider-Man in the MCU? Considering how close it is.
Norman, I think Colin as this Norman already is like, and like he said like today, he's like, I would like to go over to the MCU.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Because he's really, and like, I think he does such a cool thing. I don't know if you picked up on this, or maybe it's just my brain. It does kind of feel like he's doing a little bit of, my mind's blanking today. I'm so sorry. William, yeah, like he has a little bit of that kind of like his cadence in his voice when he's doing it, where it's his own take on the character, but there's a little bit of that in there where it's like, was that Norman? Was that, was that William?
I will say too, I'm also getting slight Giancarlo Esposito vibes too from him. Like I feel like he could also play that character, and that was my only thing. Like he's not, I don't want to say he's a throwaway character, but not having him as Norman or somebody larger, in the MCU is definitely, it feels like somewhat of a waste. But hopefully I will be proven wrong as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I honestly would have liked to see him as like Doom or Magneto or like I said, Norman, but
yeah, I'm not seeing Alexei in the cast.
Okay.
Big Donovan.
Do you think any of his buddies could be any new friends he makes in college?
What's that?
Do you think any of the friends that you're talking about now in his high school are any friends he can make in the MCU college?
Maybe.
Potentially.
I mean, I'd be curious, because like Nico is technically already, she was in the MCU, right? Like Runaways, when it was announced, was canon, right? To the MCU at one point. It's that same Age of the Shield thing, and Cloak and Dagger and stuff like that, where it's like, is it canon? Maybe. We don't know.
MCU adjacent, or in a very similar universe, but somewhere in the multiverse.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Like, again, I would have... It'd be interesting, because like there's a part of me in the MCU where it's like, I'd like you to do like a Harry or like a Gwen or even like a Felicia and stuff like that in his new trilogy. But are they allowed? Like, I know one point in time you weren't allowed to use those characters in live action.
Yeah. I think honestly, Black Cat would work very well. I think that would be an interesting dynamic, especially now the fact that everybody's kind of forgotten who Peter is.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You don't think his moral compass would be the strongest now, given all that he sacrificed? That like Um, I don't know because I feel like when Black Cat's at play, like he's a bit more like loose with like letting her go and stuff, and like
Yeah, I feel like
I kind of feel like
maybe
this is where he's gonna be like Ultra Spider-Man for the next few years until he learns to chill out again.
Hmm.
mm, maybe the only I think the only way that you could get that to work is make it similar to Spectacular in the fact that she is only
Hmm.
doing what she's doing because her dad is in prison, but flip it on its head that like maybe he went to prison for being like associated with Uncle Ben's death, but we know he didn't do it or something like that. So maybe he's got like a
Sure.
soft spot there because of that. I don't know. I think that might be an interesting twist. But again, I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to really go back and explore more Uncle Ben stuff in the MCU because we haven't even had him mentioned.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think not to get way off track because I do want to jump into our next show here.
Really?
But
Go
I
ahead.
do think Black Hat could be really cool, especially in a either Black Hat or Venom or both even. But I do think it playing on how lonely Peter is right now. Like he
Yeah.
has nobody, right? He doesn't. His family's gone. His friends are gone. He is just Spider-Man. So I think that could lend on the side of Black Cat, who's also, to his knowledge, only Black Cat, right? Like he doesn't know who's behind the mask. So that could be
Right.
a fun
Right.
parallel.
Fun? Yeah,
Speaking of
go ahead.
Spider-Man, did we ever find out what that symbiote was attached to at the start of all of everything?
I have absolutely no clue. I have absolutely no clue. In a weird way, didn't it kind of look like a mech?
I was thinking like a Craven kind of person.
That's a possibility as well. That's a possibility as well. I think that that's something maybe we'll get a little bit of a teaser for at the end of the season. But, you know, we got 2 episodes left, so we shall see.
Can you
But
imagine if they just do nothing with that Doctor Strange bit or the multiverse again?
I wouldn't put it past them because we already know it's going to be a 3 season arc. So that might be something that's not even addressed again until season 2, tail end of season 2, maybe even season 3. And then Peter's like, "Oh, I remember that thing." So I think that's definitely a possibility, but I think the smart move would be at least give us a little bit of a teaser at the end of this season.
I think we will because we got Doctor Strange inside the trailer. So I think we get a little bit more of Doctor Strange at least.
Oh, there's more that we haven't. There's more from the trailers that we haven't seen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Oh,
Cool.
thank
So
God.
then, Doctor Strange's return confirmed. So this week was another batch of 3 episodes. I think that these again were maybe the strongest of the 3 that we've gotten so far because it dealt with a lot of kind of the moral dilemma that we always see Peter dealing with between trying to balance his life as Peter Parker and balance his job and his obligation and his responsibility as Spider-Man. So first episode was kind of Peter trying to get Harry and Nico to become closer friends. They have this little gathering and everything like that. Peter gets called away because somebody breaks into Oscorp, and the person who broke into Oscorp was, surprise, surprise, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen himself, voiced by Charlie Cox, Daredevil. And I've been talking about this all week. That fight scene was so good. I'm so glad that when they released it, I didn't watch it online. Like seeing it in the actual episode itself, hearing that banter back and forth between the two of them, the fact that Daredevil was basically just toying with Spider-Man. He was like, "Hey kid, there are bigger things at play here than you understand right now." And just kind of take it for what it is, and just know that I am on a complete different level, basically. And just the visualization of Matt's abilities, kind of the sonar and everything like that. Yes, the Daredevil theme. Yes, the theme. It was so good, and again, it makes me question as far as, do I like the fact that it is something completely separate, that it's kind of its own what if story, that it's an Elseworld sort of thing, or would I have wanted this to be tied to the MCU? Because think about how interesting that would have been if in the early days of Spider-Man, like we knew that Tom Holland's Peter Parker interacted with Daredevil in one way or another. I think that would have been cool, but I still do I'm in that camp of I like the fact that it is separate while we are still bringing in elements from the MCU that we know and love. So Daredevil cameo, absolutely amazing. Moving into the next episode, that was the big one that everybody was talking about with the big kind of Scorpion showdown. We got the most brutal scene in pretty much any Spider-Man media ever. We had Scorpion literally just impale a dude and like stick him to the ceiling. Like it was kind of crazy.
Scorpion did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of the culmination of where all this tech is coming from. So there's a big mystery is like all of these villains are getting tech from some source. We throughout the last few weeks have known that Doc Ock is actually the source of these pieces of tech that are falling into the villain's hands and everything like that. Scorpion has the most kind of advanced. He's got his whole kind of mech suit and everything like that. He goes after Lonnie's gang. He's officially being called Tombstone now. He's, living up to that name. He is very much so committed to it, even though it's causing his entire life around him to collapse. Like he got kicked off the football team. He's kind of at odds with his family. He has to kind of make a decision too between now his found family and his real family and friends. He's like, hey, I have to stay committed to this. These people are the people that I connect with now. And he goes full force into it. He, ends his relationship with Pearl, which is very interesting too. It seems like he obviously didn't want to. But again, the fact that he has now been kind of, brought into this gang, they kind of see him in a different light than everybody else. You can definitely see the appeal for him. He came from a very structured background where, go to school, football practice, that sort of thing. But he's found this new kind of crew that he clicks with, I guess, for a lack of a better term. We also do get not our first appearance. I believe we saw him in the previous batch of episodes as well, but he actually had the kind of comic book mask on and everything. Chameleon, so we're definitely building out that, vast rogues gallery as far as Spider-Man villains go. But big culmination of this episode, Scorpion fights. Peter thinks that he can take him out. He actually does end up webbing him up and everything like that. But Scorpion is too strong. He breaks out of it and just goes to town and absolutely destroys Spider-Man. Destroys the suit. Peter gets stabbed with the tail, and he just nearly makes it out alive. And the only way that he got out alive, big thing, Norman sends, surprise, surprise, the Green Goblin glider to go grab him and take him back to Oscorp. Very, very cool way to end that episode. I think that episode 2 was probably, again, the biggest as far as action set pieces go, as far as setting up ideas for the future. Norman is already working on Green Goblin tech. Spider-Man has some big foes out there that he is not necessarily prepared for yet, both physically and mentally. And then that brings us into the final episode where Peter's kind of recovering and everything like that. He has a big heart-to-heart with Norman, talking about kind of a spin on the classic, with great power comes great responsibility. We have, with great power comes great respect from Norman. And that was something that I'm not sure how I feel about it. However, in the context of the show, it makes sense. It shows us that Norman views things from a little bit of a different perspective than an Uncle Ben would, than, a standard mentor for Peter would. is he believes that because Peter has these abilities, because he has these powers, that he shouldn't hold back in instances like when he fought Scorpion. And that just goes against everything that, we know about Spider-Man. It goes against everything that Peter was originally taught. But he believes that in order to continue working with his idol, to continue working with Norman, to continue getting all this tech and everything and all this assistance, that maybe he has to be a little bit more, I guess, on edge, a little bit more brutal, that sort of thing. What, what do we think he's making the gear for? Green Goblin stuff, just in case Peter can't hack it, I feel like is really the best way to put it. And I think we kind of saw it, is he gave him an ultimatum, for lack of a better term, was basically like, hey, fully commit to being Spider-Man, become the best version of yourself, and, get yourself back out there, or we can't continue to work together. And that was a very big struggle for Peter in that final episode this week, and that all culminates at the end. Before we get there, we have again another little side plot with Harry and Nico. I think that was very cool because at the end of the day, it got us to see her amulet actually light up, give her some abilities. As they were, racing the car through the streets of New York. I thought that was very cool. I can't tell if Nico actually understood what was happening there or if she even noticed. But I think that is, again, some really good setup for probably season 2, where she might end up fully joining Team Spider-Man. Now, end of the episode. Harry is there with
What's
Peter.
her power, sorry?
What was that?
What's her power?
So she is a character from Runaways.
She's magic.
Right.
She has like a magic staff.
Yeah, she's like a magic staff and everything like that. Let me see actually what her
and they
powers
reference,
really are.
I haven't read it, but they reference in the prequel comic that she had left where she was in the Runaway show. So
Okay.
It's not confirmed she has her powers, but it seems like maybe they're teasing it potentially.
Yeah. Dark magic. Nico's body can absorb magical weapons and remove them from her mother's control. Nico's magic can be chaotic and unpredictable. Uses the Staff of One, which is considered the most powerful weapon in existence. Nico's powers bend to her will, preventing her from hurting an ally or healing an enemy. Interesting. So I don't know a ton about her background. Just again, she's got a magical staff. So it seems like this amulet has something to do with it. Maybe they're changing it up slightly so she doesn't have a staff. She just channels her magic through that amulet. But yeah, that's going to be very interesting. Again, going into these last couple of episodes, I don't know how much deeper we're going to dive into it. However, the end of the episode, we have, again, Peter still healing up from the events of the previous episode, getting his butt kicked by Scorpion. He's chilling up in the office with Harry, and Harry's like, hey, I had some of the guys work on stuff for you. We looked at your sketches and everything like that, and we made a new suit because the suit got destroyed in the fight with Scorpion. We don't actually get to see the suit in the episode, but we see it reflecting off of his glasses. And we see the red and blue being reflected in there, so we know that it's that classic comic book suit. Do we think too many people are learning his identity too fast? I think he has the identity keeping skills of Barry from seasons 1 through 3.
Yeah. Speaking of suits, right? So, have you seen the Green Goblin yet?
We have not seen the Green Goblin. The first real tease we got was that glider coming in. And
cool.
So do you think that that's really for Norman, or do you think he was maybe making it for his son?
My whole thing...
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Was, like, what Green Goblin do you think we're going to get, right? Because do you think we're going to get him in an armored suit, or do you think we're going to get something more, like, reminiscent of the 90s suit, where it's just, like, fabric and hits
Oh no, it's
all
gonna
of
be
his strength.
it's gonna be armored. It's gonna be armored for sure. If
Oh, really?
if the suit montage from earlier, if the way that all of the villains have been so far too. So Norman and Doc Ock used to work together in this universe. They used to be scientist buddies basically. And again, if Doc Ock is any indication, if any of those suits that he's made are any indication, I think it's going to be something along those lines. Yeah, Darren, I do think we talked about this a little bit ago as well. Is that maybe Norman is making the Green Goblin stuff specifically for Harry, just in case either Spider-Man turns on them, meaning Spider-Man figures out what their real intentions are and they need to put a stop to them, or maybe it's a little bit of a nicer intention at the beginning, like, oh, maybe we'll give Harry a suit and then he can be out there in the field with Spider-Man. Think about how cool it would be potentially to season 2. We have Peter in the classic Spider-Man suit. We have Harry in the Green Goblin suit, or maybe he ends up being Hobgoblin to start out with, and then Nico with her magic and everything like that. And then by season 3, since again this is going to be a 3-season arc or a 3-season plan, by season 3 that is when we get full-on Norman Osborn Green Goblin. Something happens, maybe Harry gets injured or Peter finds out about all of the kind of like sketchy stuff that Norman's been planning, and that's how we have that rivalry really begin. Maybe Norman becomes Iron Patriot and Harry becomes Green Goblin. That would be very interesting as well. He has been working with Thunderbolt Ross too, so that would be very interesting. I think that that's a very good theory, Jonathan. I do like that. I do like that. Darth, any more theories? Any more thoughts before I pull up a little teaser for the 2-part finale?
No, smash it.
Okay, Darren, you got anything?
We had that cool Iron Man cameo as well. Which was
Yes,
nice.
yes. Iron Man came in, swooped in, saved the day, stopped Doc Ock as he was running out.
He
And
made
again,
it off the dashboard.
yeah, and again, designed very similarly. It looks like Robert Downey Jr., but the suit looked really good. The suit looked like an old classic, Iron Man suit, which was great. Jeffrey here, just like in the games, Norman and Doc Ock work together at first in the PS5 games. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up. I love the PS5 games, or PS4 and PS5 games. But yeah, that's a cool connection. That
it's
is a
really
very cool
cool
connection.
too to see the in-universe connection to the Soviet Accords.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like
Yeah.
we never really got to see that before. It was always just like, it affected Endgame and Avengers and they split up.
Mhm.
But we don't ever see the real life consequences of the
Yeah, it
heroes
is.
working for the government, which is cool.
Yeah, it is. It is very cool, and it's interesting too to see how Norman is trying to get on the government's good side. And he's playing both sides of it because he's hiding things from the government, as far as he didn't give them Peter's real identity. He gave them the identity of one of the guards, actually a security guard that we saw in that first episode after Daredevil appeared, is who they're saying Spider-Man is. But he's also, again, getting the information that he needs and working as closely with them as he possibly needs to, again, eventually get exactly what he wants. But here we have it. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Don't miss the 2-episode finale on Wednesday. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is now streaming only on Disney+. What do we think of the first look at the classic suit? Can we make it any bigger? There we go. A little bit bigger. What do we think?
There we go.
Yeah. What do we think? I think it looks great. It actually kind of looks like it looks like a mix of the Spectacular suit, the classic Ditko suit, and the MCU suit, just because of the eyes. But I do love it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think they've done well. I think they've done very well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it in action. I'm excited to see it moving. But yeah, I'm really excited for this finale. Like I said, is I didn't love those first two episodes. I was intrigued, but I didn't love it. Second week, they had my attention. This week, I'm all hands on deck. I'm very, very excited to see where things go in this finale, and see how they set up for that next season. Again, how many elements from the beginning do they bring back? Yes, we're supposed to see Doctor Strange again. How much further into the multiverse idea do we go? Do we get any explanation as to what was going on with that symbiote? Are we going to potentially get, the symbiote suit for season 2, or is that going to be a season 3 thing? What's going on with Norman? What's going on with Harry? That sort of thing. Jeffrey, really good point. The question is, what does Osborn want? I think he said exactly what he wanted this week, and that is to have great power and great respect. Now he already kind of has that as far as, being a big business tycoon. But you live in a world with all of these superheroes. You have Civil War happening, you have the Sokovia Accords happening. You're just a rich business guy. What can you do to defend yourself, to defend your business, to defend your family, to defend your intellectual property and your technology and that sort of thing? I think he wants to not only be looked at as one of the top scientists in the world, one of the top businessmen in the world, but I think he also kind of wants to be, I guess, respected so much that he's feared. I think that's probably what he's looking for as well. He's kind of, again, it sounds like, world domination kind of thing, but I think it's on a little bit of a smaller scale than that. I think it boils down to maybe he feels slightly insecure being a normal person in a world full of superheroes. I think that's kind of my take on it. What do you guys think?
To kind of pivot just like for a second, you guys
Yeah.
can get back to this, but do we think he's going to get the full speech from someone else, or do we think he already got it? Like, do you think Uncle Ben already gave him it's great power, or do you think maybe MJ gives it again? Like, I'm waiting for a moment or like he repeats what Norman said to someone. He's like, "Oh, I have to have respect." And he's like, "What? No, great power comes great responsibility," and it clicks for
Yeah.
him. Like, "Oh, you're right."
I think I think that would be a very good conversation for him to have with May. Now, that was one of my biggest issues with Spider-Man No Way Home, was that she was the surrogate for that, as she gave Peter the, with great power comes great responsibility kind of line, before she died, which I didn't love. But I think in this context, it would work, because maybe Peter goes to Aunt May and is like, hey, May, I've been lying to you. I am Spider-Man. I have this great power, and, I need, no, Mr. Osborn is telling me I need to, garner respect with it or something like that. And she's like, hey, no, Peter, like, think about what your Uncle Ben said. With great power comes great responsibility. And maybe we even get a little bit of a flashback. So that is my idea of where it goes to. But Darth, what do you think?
I think you're right that it's interesting that we're getting, like, for want of a better word, the bastardized version first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if he got it before, I feel like that when he gets that bit that I don't think I've seen, he would have just walked out the room, or even said to him, "Well, no, it's responsibility. I think you got the wrong R
Right.
there," you know. Um, so it's interesting whether, like, because there are different iterations of Peter Parker, as we know. Like, sometimes he bends to the wrong influence, sometimes he rises against the wrong influence, sometimes he has the right influence. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
depends on where you are. So it'd be interesting to see if he does it off of his own back. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, because his character, for the most part, unless it's in the extremes where he's a bad person, is always quite true. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So just because he hasn't had the initial kick, like, he's still that guy. So it
Mm-hmm.
might be that he does it, and then it shows everybody who he is through it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he just needs to learn that lesson for himself. Is yes, he's given, like you said, he's been given this twisted version of the speech that was supposed to give him that push to become Spider-Man originally. And I think, again, that's where that original disconnect with the show was for me. The fact that by killing Uncle Ben before Peter gets his powers, you miss out on the opportunity to, number one, have that with great power comes great responsibility speech, but also for him to feel like he had great power and that he did not take advantage of the responsibility that he was given to then save him. The fact that he was already dead when Peter when he got bit by the spider, that completely removes that from the equation. So I guess the other question is there going to be a scenario that happens where Peter has a responsibility to do something, but he ends up not, because maybe Norman is in his ear or Harry's in his ear, and they tell him, hey, you got to come back, you got to do this, you got to do that, or you got to preserve your identity or something along those lines. And he has a similar feeling from that he would have had if he had his powers before Uncle Ben died, if that makes sense. I kind of jumped through a few hoops to get there, but I feel like I got the idea out.
Yeah, it's good, definitely.
All right. Spider-Man was crazy. The fact that it was time travel all along. I'm just gonna start the conversation with that. Darth, did you catch up? Did you see how we kind of
No,
how
I
we
didn't
ended
get a chance.
things? Okay.
I didn't get a chance yet.
So the beginning. Do you care for about spoilers?
No. You crack on.
Okay. So the beginning of the show, where we see Peter get bit by the spider, it comes down through the portal, the whole fight with Doctor Strange and everything like that. That is actually future Doctor Strange coming through. That spider was one that was created by Oscorp because they were trying to replicate Spider-Man's powers. So it creates a really interesting
Grandfather
dilemma.
paradox.
Yeah, exactly. Is what came first, Spider-Man or the spider? Because if that spider in the future is only created because Spider-Man has those powers and Norman was trying to recreate those powers, where does that loop start and end? That's the only confusing bit there. Maybe not the only confusing bit, but a big confusing bit. I think it really leans heavily into the idea that this is an Elseworlds project. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to start off by saying that is I think that the time travel was something that I was not expecting, and I think that it shows us that we're in for much more cosmic, mind-bendingness than we thought from the beginning. Yes, it might be named Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, but there is definitely a wider universe and a wider world out there. We got, a little tease of the Watcher as well. So, yes, Darren, I want to give you your, credit.
I called that as well. I called that as well with the intro. Oh my god!
Yeah,
yes.
Both of you. Yeah, it is a kind of expanded what if. But Darren, while you were gone, I kind of just jumped right into the time travel. Yeah.
Speaking of, right? So what? Because I don't know Dickens, right? The Venom thing. Who was that?
Yeah.
Of?
So Venom came in as so Norman was trying to create a portal just out into space. So the whole idea behind the internship program was that all of the kids were working on different pieces to make this wormhole generator, basically. Doctor Strange comes in and is like, hey dude, don't mess with the cosmic fabric of time and space. And Norman's like, I don't care what you say, funky wizard, I'm gonna do what I want. And he opens up a portal to space and he's like, oh, this is great, nothing bad is happening. And then Venom symbiote comes through the portal, starts the whole big fight, and that's how we get that time travel aspect of it. Is Doctor Strange opens up a portal, accidentally time travels, goes back to Peter's first day of school, and then destroys the school, all of that. That's how the spider gets down in there, and is left in the past to then bite Peter. But again, what came first, Peter or the spider?
Yeah.
Like, that is, yeah.
It's I was gonna say because he had the Venom had no idea who Peter was, so I was wondering if that still remained the case. And then,
and I'm guessing that this Venom didn't even have a host. Like, it didn't seem like it.
Its own thing.
Yeah, it just seemed like a hostless creature.
Does this make you feel better about the pilot? Because one of your criticisms is that they were doing the multiverse so early, and this episode confirms it's not the multiverse; it's time travel. Which
I'm much happier with that. As weird as it sounds, I'm much happier with that, and the fact that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
As well, is I do really like that. But again, the biggest question though is, how does this loop start? Like, is there a timeline in this universe where Oscorp just creates the spider and then Peter gets bit just, randomly?
It's very...
And then it starts the loop?
It makes your head hurt a little bit.
It does.
It's like, oh, I don't like this. And I feel like it, in a way, kind of goes against the, Spider-Verse rules a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like, which, again, I know there's going to be stuff like that breaks
it's this canon event. It's the canon event. Yeah.
Right, where it's like, well, this kind of breaks the canon event, doesn't it? I know we cannot think about it. That's not this show's responsibility to answer for Spider-Verse rules. But it's still in my head of but wasn't it a canon event that spiders happen like this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned it was time travel, because one of my questions was going to be if it was a multiversal spider, whatever answer they had at the end of this, 8 episodes, 10 episodes, literally just shoots in the face of the third Spider-Verse movie if that was the case.
Yeah.
So thank God it is time travel.
Yeah. I think it sets them apart. Again, it still brings in that aspect of, the art style of Spider-Verse and paying homage to it in that way. Even again, Peter gets bit by that spider in a very similar way to how Miles does. But again, it's the time travel versus the multiversal travel, which I think makes it feel more like a self-contained story, which I really, really like. And with that time travel aspect, again, chicken and egg, Peter and spider, whatever came first, I think at the end of the day, what they're trying to tell us is it doesn't matter what came first. Yes, that's kind of a lazy out for a time travel loop like that, but his conversation with Doctor Strange at the end, where he was asking, what about my future, that sort of thing, is I think that, and he was like, you're ready for whatever, gets thrown at you. I think that it kind of shows you is no matter what, everything happens the way it's supposed to. Everything happens for a reason. And even if you tried to stop something from happening, time would just fix itself and do what it's supposed to do. And that's why, maybe that's the explanation too of why we got the Watcher there, is the Watcher is there to make sure that this always happens.
Yeah.
I
wonder if, not to bring in MCU lore, but I do wonder if we're diving into even almost Nexus being level things, where it's maybe this Spider-Man needed to be in this universe for whatever reason, that the universe literally had to intervene. It's he has to get the spider, right?
Right. Is
because it's very coincidental, where it's okay, he comes in here and he falls down here and he gets bit and it goes back up, and it's it feels like it's almost planned the way it the way it goes. So
the original Spider-Man missed the bus, so the time was oh god, this guy. Okay,
I don't think
have a whole time travel.
I don't think he recognized it, which was interesting. I wonder if he's gonna get the opportunity to visit that time again. Imagine season after season, he somehow always ends up back here, and he's putting the pieces
it's
right,
flat.
and he's putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and he's oh, that's the spider that that made me. And I don't know. I think
he's in
maybe
he didn't see it. To be fair, he didn't see it and straight passed out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Like,
funny.
so we have to cut him some slack on IDing the spider, unfortunately.
But okay, that was the big thing that I wanted to talk about right off the rip. Darren, what did you think about these last couple episodes?
I thought it was a very solid conclusion to this show. Again, like I didn't talk much about it last week because I couldn't talk. I still can't really, but it's been such a cool journey. Up being like, that was okay. Oh, this is pretty good. Oh, I'm really liking this. To what a great send off to that first season
Yeah.
journey. It only had 10 episodes. I think it's one of the better Disney Plus shows. I'll be honest. And I know like the animated stuff is a bit different than the live action stuff, but this and X-Men I think have been my favorite among these, which maybe is a pattern to they're animated and not live action.
Yeah.
So what you can do in that medium and how much I love animation, but it feels like it told a full story, a full arc, a full journey. These characters in just a short amount of time feels so fleshed out. This is a world that I now want to spend in. I want to spend time in again. And again, I hope it's not just a 3-season journey. And we talked week 1 about will the show have its own identity? And I don't know how you feel. I think it in just 1 season has, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't see I no longer see Tom Holland's Spider-Man, right? I think this is his own unique take on the character, which I think is so exciting.
Yeah, I think, like you said, is week over week, it really, I guess, calmed my nerves and calmed my fears of, what I had problems with from those first couple of episodes. And the fact that the whole show comes full circle and we just had to sit back and let them cook. I think for a lack of a better term, we just had to sit back and watch the show play out the way that it was meant to play out. And again, the fact that they pay homage to, all past iterations of Spider-Man. I sent you a fun little TikTok edit where it was, splicing between, scenes that they were referencing and everything. Yeah, so it just, again, I love the animation style. I love the story that they were telling. Again, retroactively, I'm much happier with those first couple of episodes, seeing why we got there. And I think we had to go on that journey. I think it's going to be very interesting upon a rewatch to have that knowledge and watch it from that different perspective. I think that would be something fun to do in the future. But again, this show in 10 30-minute episodes made me care so much about these characters, made me so excited for the next 2 seasons of a show that I was somewhat avoiding. Like I didn't want to know too much going into it. It had gone through, so many developmental changes and things like that. And by the time it came out, I was like, oh, whatever. I'll watch it because we're going to cover it here on the show. But I got so invested so quickly. And again, it's building out a much larger world. And it really does feel like, what if we told the whole story?
Yeah. I don't mean to cut off the Spider-Man stuff, but apparently, really quickly, apparently Daredevil Born Again is amazing. Is from what I'm hearing. The embargo just dropped from the premiere, and everyone's saying it's like the best Disney Plus premiere to date. So
awesome.
That's
awesome. That's amazing.
Thank
it really
God.
Is.
Can you imagine if it sucked?
And I'd say, okay, everyone says that, right?
I mean, they wouldn't.
I think Moon Knight season premiere was amazing.
Yeah. I did too.
I didn't even.
Yeah, well, you're probably happy that there's no season 2 coming.
I want it for the people who want it.
Did you see
happening.
Yeah, I hope so. Or at least a special presentation. Speaking of Moon Knight, and then we'll get back to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Did you see in the most recent Marvel Rivals update, they added in references to Moon Knight and the Moon Knight Dracula meme?
Oh, yeah.
Where he's like, Dracula, where's my money? And that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they added a couple lines. It's like, he's like, Dracula better pay up. Or he's like, where's that big nerd Dracula? And all that stuff. It's freaking hilarious. But back to Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I do have a couple criticisms of these last two. Not enough to be like, oh, how could they? But just a couple of things that are in the back of my mind. And I'm curious if you agree or not. So the whole Lonnie thing I thought was really, really good. I
loved it.
I loved having these two contrasted stories of the season blend together at the end in such a way. He's very like Luke Cage coded in a way. But I don't know if I love, for one, it's him holding Spider-Man back from not killing. I kind of wanted, and this is a nitpick. This is just like a personal preference. This isn't like I can't believe they did this. Just like, I kind of wish Peter did that on his own. I kind of wish he came to the resolution on his own. Wait, this is not what my aunt would have wanted. Wait, this is not what my uncle would have wanted. This is not the kind of hero I wanted to be. Because I think if Lonnie wouldn't have come in, he would have killed Scorpion here in this episode. Which I don't know. Which again, I know it's like paralleling No Way Home. Right? Like it's supposed to be that Peter moment, but also that moment in No Way Home, I think is so much more different because like he literally murdered Aunt May, right? Like I feel like that's a different degree. Scorpion just murdered him, right? Like I think that's a different.
But I think also he went that far because he was remembering what Norman told him. I don't think he wanted to kill Scorpion because he was angry at him or, he thought that was the only way. But I think he was hearing Norman's voice echo in his mind, and he hadn't been taught that lesson. Like, we've gotten that twisted version of the with great power comes great responsibility. Exactly. So with Uncle Ben dying beforehand and everything, which is still, again, my biggest and only real criticism and critique of the show is that little setup there.
Yeah.
But the fact that Norman tried to drill into his mind is with great power comes great respect. He thought that the only way to get that respect was by killing Scorpion, and he now has to be taught that lesson that he was never taught. Yes. And I think that might be the arc of the next season. Again, jumping a little far ahead, is symbiote most likely. We're going to most likely get Black Suit. So, we might have our, I guess, demon arc for Spider-Man next season, and maybe that is the whole crux of season 2, is him coming to the realization that it isn't with great power comes great respect, it's with great power comes great responsibility. Maybe he has to come to that realization on his own.
I don't know how I feel about them doing Venom so soon, to be honest. I don't know, especially with he's literally just become Spider-Man, right? Like he's just now donning that red and blue. I kind of wish they waited, like maybe season 3, especially with Spider-Gwen coming in next season, seemingly. Like I don't think they're going to start
the season with it. I think it might be halfway through the season, or maybe it is the cliffhanger. Maybe Oscorp has it the whole season and then it gets out. Like, do you think they flip it on its head? Do we get Venom before we get Black Suit Spider-Man, and then we get the Black Suit Spider-Man?
Maybe, yeah. Like maybe...
Right. Do we do Harry Osborn Venom, or like Agent Venom, like we did in the games,
or Gwen? I've heard some
Gwen.
Use Gwen. Yeah. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm trying to think. Like, is there anyone else I'd give it to? Maybe I know he's supposed to be a Hulk, like a version of Hulk, but like maybe we make Cho like a Venom,
because they kind of did set him up right. They did kind of set him up as somewhat of an antagonist, slight villain-esque character. So that would be interesting too.
Probably closest we have to a Flash at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah, because we have no.
I would argue that
there's no Daily Bugle yet. There's no J. Jonah Jameson.
No.
That's
depending on like how you want to argue like the intoxication of the symbiote is. If you leave the Venom arc too late into his hero's journey, I would argue that it's even more negligible of him to succumb to the emotions and the rage after after having years of pulling his punches. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to have him questioning who he is as a hero and going through this quote-unquote rage arc makes sense to happen together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Opposed to down the line.
You might have just given me an epiphany there too. Maybe that's why the Spider-Man 2 game didn't work as well for me with the Venom arc, is the fact that we got Venom for a very, very, very experienced Spider-Man.
15 years in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because I think it only works best once Peter's gone through a trauma, or once Peter is experiencing difficulties in his career as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And right now, our Peter's had it really good, right?
He's kind of at the height. He's pretty much at the height. He's got the suit. Lonnie's his buddy. Good friendships going on right now. He defeated the bad guy. Like, the only bad thing going on right now is whatever the heck Norman's up to.
Right.
So.
And that's another thing. I really liked the Norman stuff. I do wish they kind of just told us he's leaving Norman. I kind of wish we got to see, like, I get obviously because of what happens why he left, but he kind of was like, yeah, I'm done with Norman now. I was like, I kind of wanted to see that confrontation on screen. I wanted to see Peter go to Norman and be like, you've done so much for me. Thank you so much. But I can't do this anymore.
I think we're going to get that in season 2, maybe. That might be how we open it.
Sure, maybe. But it seemed like he had already... I mean, maybe. Maybe you're right.
There's nothing to say he's actually had that conversation. He could have just left and waited for him to get the assumption, or... because, say, for example, episode 1, everything was so regimented and time-constrained that if you didn't show up, you were fired. So if he just doesn't show up for a day... everybody's like, well, he doesn't deserve to be here. He didn't want to be here. He's gone. You know what I mean? So, he could just be cool, I just left. So the confrontation could come, like you say, in season 2.
Yeah. And I do think that's very exciting. I think that's an exciting place to put them. Because we are not burning the bridge yet, which I thought was going to happen, right? I think he's kind of at a place of keeping Norman at an arm's distance. I'm not working with you anymore, but I'm not your enemy. Right?
Yeah.
You're still someone I look up to. And I think that's going to go a very, very Smallville, where it's even when Clark separated himself from Lex, he still ask him for stuff. He'd still go and be like, hey, Lex, can I borrow a car for a banquet or whatever? So, I don't know. It's that kind of stuff. And I do think with Spider-Man coming next season, that's very exciting. I do wonder if Norman has to recruit a new Spider-Person for his little project, right? Maybe... does he still have some of those spiders? I'm not sure, but
right. So I guess what happens to that spider after it bites Peter? So maybe we're gonna get a different angle of that, and just the spider goes and finds Gwen directly after, potentially.
We have Peter's dad in this continuity as well, which I know is something that the Amazing movies tried to do, and people hated him for it.
Voiced by none other than... You go ahead. This is a big thing for you.
Josh Keaton, sorry.
Yes.
I was like...
Agent Spider. Why is Agent Spider in this?
Yeah. Josh Keaton... Very cool. We kind of knew he was involved in the season due to things he was saying online.
Yeah. Dude can't keep a secret.
I'm kind of glad because I don't know if I would have recognized, because it's not his Peter voice. It's a very
no, it's a completely different voice.
So I think it's good that they told us.
Naruto might be right then. If because Josh Keaton is such a big person in the Spider-Man legacy,
right?
It would make sense that if they, Naruto says, that they give him the line.
His dad.
If they give him the symbiote?
No, the with great power comes great.
Oh, they give him the line. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's probably what will happen. I mean, just to call back to my episode 2, I think it was week 2, where I said it's very Flash season 1 coded. And I'll say I said that then, and ever since I said it, everyone else started being like, "Oh, it's like Flash season 1."
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
I can think about why you've been talking about it. I've been waiting to say something, so I'm glad you said it.
Okay.
Because it just screams Flash season 1. So
Airy.
Great
which is
shout.
not an insult. I love Flash season 1.
Yeah.
But it makes the CW Spider-Man memes so much more funny. right? The ones that have been going on for years. Oh, they actually have one. It's fine. It seems like season 2 will have more Daredevil, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Excited for that. Seems like all the heroes or all the characters are getting their powers and stuff. Like Nico had her little amulet thing that glowed.
Well, that was I'm glad you brought that up. That was a big thing, that she knows exactly what's going on with that. So whether she consciously used that or not in the street race, like she's already, I guess in the know as far as the magical powers go. So
yeah.
I think that'll be an interesting arc for her. Now imagine she's got that magic side of her that she's trying to hide. And then she maybe sees Spider-Gwen come in here, gets jealous that Peter's got a new friend, somebody who, can help him
that could be me.
with the superhero side of things. Yeah. Right. So then that kind of makes her kind of deep dive more into that magic and kind of see where that goes.
And
what kind
I
of
think
magic is it? Because she's already seen Doctor Strange, so like he would be a great person to try and talk to.
I think it's like a dark magic.
Yeah, like a dark magic witchcraft kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very.
And like, is her?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, is her mom trapped in the amulet, or like, what's going on there? Yeah.
And like, I think there could be a really cool narrative for this season too, because everything that she said to Peter, she's kind of projecting, right? Like, well, episode 2, it's like, I can't, like, can you believe these heroes are out here doing stuff? Like, like it's all been projecting, and her being the Peter, being like, how could you do this? It's her being like, I should be doing it, right? So I think that is going to be interesting. I'm very excited for that. And I think having magic so close to a Spider-Man story is fascinating. I don't feel like we don't typically see that in most mainstream Spider-Man stories. So
it's completely fresh. It's completely new. I don't know about I don't know about you, but I kind of outside of Doctor Strange,
I meant just like in his inner friend circle. I feel like there's not a lot.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but when the car was flying at Nico and like it zoomed in on the necklace and we saw kind of the reflection of Spider-Man in there, I was waiting for him to make some sort of reference like, I don't know how I got here kind of thing. Like I thought that she like teleported him in basically with the amulet, but obviously not. But
that was such a
could
good
have been
shot.
an interesting idea. Yeah, it was. It was.
It was sick.
Yeah, it was.
And I also love that shot where he's having like a mini anxiety attack about Scorpion, and his mask comes off. Not really, but like to the
right
body,
as we see,
scared he is. Yeah,
it was a very cool visual. Very cool visual.
Shout out to Scorpion as well. They knew we're never getting to see Scorpion, so they're like, give it the show. He was a fantastic first season. He was brutal. He was bloody. He was scary. They made him terrifying. So that's fun. I know we have to move on here, but do you have any kind of final thoughts on Spider-Man?
Other than Norman's going to be a big threat next season. We know he's getting closer and closer to developing his goblin tech. Now he's got a symbiote sample. Other threats, obviously Lonnie as Tombstone. He got his powers finally. He is, full on like he's in control now, but I think he is trying to in the book of Boba Fett way, he is trying to rule with respect. So I think that's going to be very interesting as well.
That was another thing I kind of didn't love, is that Peter didn't mention anything to him. He kind of just let them go.
He's like, "Hey man, thanks for the save. See you around, kid that's in a gang." It's so weird.
Like, he saw everything he was doing, everything he was going. I really wish they would have done a scene where it's like, "Hey, thank you for helping me today, but next time I see you, I will take you in." And I think there needed to be that moment of like, what you're doing is not okay, but you just saved my life. So I'm giving you a warning, but next time I will take you down, kind of thing. Like, I think a moment like that would have been good, but I cannot wait. And again, I don't want it to be for a long time.
That also puts the person thinking, maybe I just won't bother.
Sure.
So, like, would you say that?
But I think he needs to know that it's not okay either, right?
Right.
He doesn't stand for crime. He won't just let that go.
Is while he might think that he's doing a good thing by taking over the gang and trying to rule it in a different way, I think is Spider-Man needs to make it very clear, like, hey, you might be my friend, you might be trying to do the right thing, but like I can't have gangs running, the gangs of New York
Right.
City. Like it's,
Right, I hear that, but like Spider-Man, for as amazing as he is not like webbing out the guns and throwing books in their hand and starting a book club. Like
Sure.
it is a part of the society. Do you know what I mean? Like
It-
gangs and or a criminal element are, for the most part, always going to be a part of a society that's not a utopia.
sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just as
I mean-
just as are the good people that combat that.
It's that like
Even if
super
he-
Lois thing where it's like you're saving people, but you're not actually helping the world, right? You're
Yeah.
not actually making an actual
He
difference.
could be the start of a Bruno Mannheim though.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
understand? Like he could
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a titan. He could be trying to genuinely do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
do it. Like I think from his perspective, he is a good guy, which is why I'm
Mhm.
so excited when when Tombstone is eventually the big bad of a season.
Right,
don't
when
want
they
that-
have to clash.
I'm talking like I want this to be like honestly, make him the final villain of the show. Make it everything that's been leading up
Mhm.
to this friendship that they've prospered since season 1, and him
Yeah.
have to be like, you have crossed the line. I have to take you down. It is
Yeah.
my responsibility as a hero. You have hurt too
that's-
many people. Like that's gonna
That's Tombstone saying that to Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
in his Venom arc. Like
Yeah.
that's when he gets the black suit. You've done too
Oh,
much.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always so much fun. But okay, yeah, we have to move on to our second show.
Yes.
On with Spider-Man, we only had it for 4 weeks, but I hope season 2 is spread out a bit more. I hope it's at least
Yeah.
like maybe do 5 weeks. Do like 2 episode drops. Of course, 5 weeks would be my
Mhm.
ideal.
Or just
I
make
think
the
that'd be
episodes longer.